In prayer, then Annette's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I'm just mindful of the season that we're in. We've got people preparing for Christmas. And I'm reminded, Lord God, of your promise, Lord God. You spoke long ago through Isaiah. You said, "For unto us a child is born, a son is given, and the government will rest upon his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Prince of Peace, Everlasting Father, and the increase of his government and peace, there will be no end to it." So, Father, we recognize that, and we say in this sacred chamber, this assembly today, Lord God, come and help us to govern well under your leadership. We invite you, we welcome you, give us a heaven's view of the issues that we're contending with today. In Jesus' name, amen, amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Outstanding.
I didn't forget.
Yeah. I'm trying to shut everything down.
Well, I want to welcome everyone this morning to our City-Parish Alignment Commission meeting. And as the chair, I would like to announce the following, just a little reminder. Number one, this is a public hearing, so to address the commission on any item on this agenda, please fill out the speaker form. It's located right there in the lobby, and then submit your information to the council clerk prior to the agenda item, or you will not be given the opportunity to speak. Staff assistance is available if necessary. Of course, you'd hand that in over to Ms. Veronica, all the way to your far right. When addressing the commission, please state your name and title for the official record. There's a 3-minute rule that's in effect. There's a clock right in front of you, and I ask you not to put pressure on me to start interrupting with questions, right? So everybody's going to respect one another's time in that regard. There's no debating or confrontational statements that are allowed. We want everybody to be honest. We're just asking that we be cordial in the process. The front row to my left is for media only. Food and drinks are not allowed in the auditorium. And please silence all of your phones and electronic devices. I'd like to, before we get started, of course, I'd love to know if there's any announcements that any of the commissioners have. I know Will, we got the website up, correct?
Yes. I don't know. Is my mic?
No, but I can do it.
Hit the mic control. Right. You hit mic control at the bottom. There you go.
There's Will. Will didn't ask.
Go ahead. Hit exit. There you go. Right at the top.
There you go.
No. Hit it at the top. There you go. There you go.
All right. I'm live. Okay. Yes. So the commission does have a website, LafayetteCPACommission.com. I appreciate everybody's kind of support in allowing me to kind of build that. I want to make you all proud on how it looks and how it functions and the kind of the information it puts out. Huge thanks to AOC for recording all of our meetings, making them available on YouTube. I put those YouTube videos on the website as well. It makes it very easy for people to watch our meetings after the fact if they can't come in person. And I kind of checked this morning, and we've had almost 400 visitors since we launched last month. So I don't know, maybe a third of them are just me clicking on it over and over, I don't know. But somebody's looking at it, and I am also able to see that a number of those people came from the LafayetteLA.gov website, clicking on from the parish council page, coming to our page from there. So I appreciate Veronica and LCG for doing that as well. So.
And we appreciate you, Will, for doing that, right? Anybody else?
You might want to, I know it's not on the agenda, but our minutes from last meeting, I might want to see if we approve those or any corrections.
Okay, so we don't have to approve, and it was in my notes to remind everybody today that the minutes are being sent to you, and I think we would all be wise at least to read them. So if something was recorded in the minutes that you're like, hey, no, let me contextualize that further, because I think it's probably more snapshots of what was said. You're running to the point versus the whole picture. So we don't have to approve that, Tim, but.
Well, I'm just saying, in case there's any corrections, additions, I would definitely ask commissioners.
Yep.
If you review it ahead of time and you have some corrections or if you, any unreadiness with it, just send it to me, and then we could correct it before the meeting or make the change.
Yeah, but I think I could still ask, right? Like, did you see anything, Tim? Or are there any corrections or, nope, we're all good? I do want to remind everybody that the Vice Chair Purvis couldn't be with us this morning, neither Buddy Schilling. They had some prior engagements that they could not get out of. I want to take just a moment, man. I had this thought just last week, and I was thinking, man, what we're doing as a commission is either going to be legitimized or illegitimized by the work that we put into what we're doing. And, I think the issue that we're addressing here, I mean, it's a weighty matter. And when I say weighty, it bears with it some huge consequences. I mean, I love local government because local government touches every part of everybody's life. I mean, every day. Right? And I just want to encourage everybody, right? We have to ask questions. We got to ask the hard questions. We have to ask the honest questions. And we have to ask lots of questions. Just on the top of my mind, I think we're going to hear today a well put together presentation. There's the Protect the City has put together its own, its finding. A large part of that had to do with the idea of deconsolidating. And the backside, my thought is, when we start talking deconsolidation, we're talking about a total dismantling of an existing government. And I think about, well, how much does that touch? I mean, how far does that reach? I mean, the day-to-day operations to run a city, to run a parish, and what are all the intricacies those things entail? And whether we believe it or not, I think of Star Wars, right? We create this Symbian circle. Everyone fits the other, but I think we have to ask lots of questions, hard questions. Drainage, right? Drainage has to do with watersheds. One man's drainage, it becomes another man's flooded roadway or driveway. I mean, they're all, you touch one thing and they affect the other. I think about fire protection. I wonder what Chief Benoit would say in terms of what happens to the unconsolidated area of the parish if we were to propose deconsolidation. I think about economic marketability. So what happens to the leverage of us marketing the parish and the city as a whole versus you put that in two. So anyways, there's lots of questions, lots of hard questions, and a lot of honest questions. And I just want to encourage us all to ask those questions, if that's okay. It's a preacher, it's my soapbox, and since you nominated me chair, I had the privilege to do that, all right? Our first speaker today is Mr. Kevin Blanchard. And Kevin, along with Ms. Carly, were big proponents of Fix the Charter. So we've invited him to come and tell us, it's still part of the history, and tell us the story about what we're addressing. So this is Mr. Kevin Blanchard. Thanks for coming, Kevin.
Hit the mic control at the bottom, and then hit the table. Oh no, he went to that side. So hit.
See if I can.
I got you.
Oh yeah. Okay, good.
Middle one on.
All right, y'all can hear me good? It's fine? Good morning. I appreciate the invite to come and talk. If any of you know me, you know that this is the subject that I talk about all the time. So it's good to have an outlet, and unfortunately you're going to have to be here and listen to it for a little bit. But I do hope that this can help drive the conversation a little bit. I also want to start off by thanking you guys for volunteering your time to do this. As Bobby was saying, this is a complicated task. There are a lot of big consequences attached to the decisions that we make as a community like this. And, you know, it's not always easy to step up and put your neck out there and have an opinion about things. And so whether our opinions are the same or not, I appreciate you coming out here and participating. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got here, fix the charter, the whole bit. And I got a couple big points and I got a couple of recommendations. I sent you guys this yesterday just to give you kind of a chance to review if you needed to. I was telling Bobby before the meeting that I usually, when I give presentations, I try not to use any words. I try to use just pictures. And this one you got, it's black and white, just letters. So I apologize for it being sort of boring and thick. Here's, I think, one of the reasons why I'm here. I have a lot of perspectives on the City-Parish Charter. I sat in this row behind me for about 9.5 years, probably longer than anybody except for Claire, who's still here, but she and I used to be seatmates for many, many years, and I watched, I guess, the first several councils and several administrations kind of deal with and work through those initial years of consolidation. And, you know, that was something that at the time, Mr. Andy Hebert was kind of the lone voice for a lot of the, I guess, discontent at the time. And in many ways, I think that the things that Andy were pointing out back then are probably really true. Later, I volunteered for the Comprehensive Plan Committee. Joey got me roped into that. And then I was on a Chamber of Commerce task force after the 2011 deconsolidation vote. The Chamber of Commerce sort of said, look, we're not going to drop this issue. We're going to keep, you know, if people don't want to deconsolidate, that's fine, but we still have the issues that we had before the deconsolidation vote. So what can we do to try to mitigate those issues that we're still having? It was not a successful attempt. It was not a successful task force. We, I think, were able to come and get something in front of the City-Parish Council proposing, I think, what we called at that time like a council within a council that was like a 9-member council, but the 5 folks who, you know, served city-only districts, and they would be city-only districts, would handle city stuff. Not dissimilar from this sort of setup in that, you know, the city council and the parish council are 2 separate entities. This would have been one entity, but with different sort of voting privileges, I guess, for some of the members who were voted for the city. And the city people would vote on parish things, obviously, because we're all parish residents. But that didn't pass. Then spent time here at LCG a couple of years, and you know, in 2018, volunteered for the Fix the Charter PAC, a group of us when the current City Parish Council were bringing up the idea of these charter amendments. There were a group of us that were like, look, this is an issue that we've cared about for a long time. If you can put together amendments that are generally in the direction that we think, you know, that we agree with, then we will try to help get them passed. Because a lot of times, I think you guys know, these public referendums really need some sort of like voices out there to tell people what's up. It's not really fair to always put this on the elected officials. You know, the elected officials are already sticking their neck out by putting the thing on the ballot to begin with. So what can we do to support? And, you know, this is all as way to tell you that, like, this has been an issue for a long time, and it's been something that I've talked about for a long time. And you are the 7th group, 7th effort, really, in the last 11, 12, 10 years or whatever to look at this. And so, you know, I don't really think of, like, the world as, like, before the 2018 charter amendments and after the 28 charter amendments. I really think of it as this continuation of a public discussion that at times has been very productive and has gotten us places, and other times has been very unproductive and has not moved the needle at all. I am in favor of productive arguments as opposed to non-productive arguments. But I was asked, how did we sort of get here, and what were some of the regrets I think that we might have as people who supported those amendments? One, I think, is bearing fruit now Because we had what I did not think was a very meritorious lawsuit filed that was eventually dismissed, that put a lot of, delayed a lot the necessary transition work. You know, I think the things that we're seeing sort of come up in city council and parish council meetings now, what's a city vote? What's a parish vote? How do we make joint decisions? How do we just settle a dispute? If we can't figure out if is this a city thing or a parish thing or a joint thing, what's our procedure for joint meetings? We were hoping, and I think everybody kind of that understood how LCG worked, that just saying, okay, we're gonna have a parish council and a city council is like, you know, that's the overall framework, but there are a lot of really nitty-gritty detail that needed to be worked out and that should have been worked out, and they weren't. And so we put the first city council and the first parish council in a really bad position because they're here on the first day with new rules, new roles, and we were all just kind of, and the new administration as well. Like we're just all trying to figure it out as we go. I had hoped that we were going to be able to at least arm those folks with some amount of useful transition. It is not that the transition committee was not a bunch of great folks. There just weren't a lot of folks on there that actually understood how, like, the inner workings of LCG and like just the boring sort of like dry stuff that actually matters, the procedural stuff. And I see my council people like shaking their heads, like, you understand, like this is complicated, and you know. So I also want to make this point. I kind of get pushback sometimes as being somebody who favors deconsolidation, and you know, that wasn't really true in 2018. In 2018, the charter amendments were like marriage counseling. You know, when in 2013, when we came to the council, it was very much like a city-led effort to try to push this thing. And my friend Jay Castile, Kevin, you might have been on the council then, kind of pushed back a little bit. I don't think they felt included enough. And so we lost. You know, we were only able to get 4 out of the 5 city folks to vote with us, and that was it. So we didn't do a good job then trying to kind of bridge the gap. The difference in 2018 is that we had sort of parish people and city people at the table figuring out, like, what can we do to move this thing forward. We had people who were pro-consolidation and against deconsolidation in 2011, both kind of agreeing with this. Like this, the 2018 charter amendments were the compromise. Like these were the things that were like, okay, if we're having difficulty, obviously, because we're talk about this every year, and we have new issues and old issues that always pop up, then if this is the thing that we're going to do to try to solve our problems, these 2018 charter amendments are a way that we're going to give the city what it wants, which is a higher level of autonomy and a higher level of control over taxation, and we're going to give the parish what it needs, which is still a stable, consolidated government, because the parish does not have the resources of the city, and we don't want to have a parish government that is not able to fulfill its duties to the people. And so it is disappointing to me, frankly, that we have not gotten to that point, and that we're still, I think, arguing against ghosts. But it is what it is, you know? So overall, I'm very grateful and happy that the vote passed. I'm, you know, was very hopeful about the signal of like togetherness that it took for our political leaders to make those decisions back in 2018. And I think that we're better off today than we were then. I know that in your resolution that formed this commission, one of the things that you were, of many, but one of the things that you were asked to look at was whether or not we should repeal these amendments. I would beg you not to do that. I think that would be a step back. We did not create utopia with the 28 charter amendments, but we did give the city a measure of autonomy that it wanted and needed and deserves while maintaining consolidated government. And that ultimately was what we were trying to accomplish. The rest of it are just things that we need to work on as people and as neighbors and as, you know, elected officials and as volunteers and citizens, and that's what you're doing right now. So I appreciate that. Bobby and I, when we talked about this, he also encouraged me to kind of share some general thoughts of where you might, where I think, you could be thinking about this. And so I'm going to make 2 big points, and I'm going to make 2 recommendations, but I would really love, if you have any questions, to take those. The first big point is that I don't think it's very much up to debate. I don't think that our current form of consolidation is fair. I think it's full of a lot of conflicts. And the issue is it's very rare. I know in one of y'all's first meetings, the discussion was had like, well, other people have done this. Like, how come we're having such a hard time figuring out, right? And because I have no hobbies, and like I said, I think about this way too much, I actually went and did the research. There are 41 counties, cities, consolidated around the country according to the National League of Cities. They track this sort of thing. That's out of 3,143 counties, so it's less than 1% of people have ever accomplished this, and it is an accomplishment because a lot of people have tried, and it's not usually very popular. It usually doesn't pass. Of those 41, most are like full consolidations. They're like New Orleans, right? There is an Orleans parish, and there is a New Orleans, but their boundaries are the same, their taxation is the same, their government is the same. The formality of a city or county in New Orleans doesn't really matter, right? It's mostly in a lot of big cities, like San Francisco is the same way, Boston is the same way. It's just a mega city that got so big, they were like, you know what, we're just a county, right? And so now you're left with like about a dozen partial consolidations where for many different reasons, the city and the parish are not coterminous, sort of like equal entities. And a lot of them are like us. There are municipalities that aren't participating in the consolidated form of government. Maybe there's an unincorporated part of the county that's not participating, but not sort of a complete full consolidation. And we've heard that for years, right? Like, we're not really consolidated, right? We don't have true consolidation. Most of those around the country, in fact, all of the ones outside of Louisiana, also, though, have a very big city in the middle of their consolidated government. And so the smallest, and I can share this chart with you if I haven't already, I might have. The Louisville, I think, is the lowest percentage of that list, and it's about 81% of its county's population is the city of Louisville. Most of them are in the 90s. So like Jacksonville, Duval County, consolidated government, but Jacksonville is 95% of that county's population. And so, yes, there are people who do not live in the city of Jacksonville who get to vote on the city of Jacksonville's representatives, right, the mayor of Jacksonville, but it's a 95% sort of population advantage, and so it's kind of not that big of a deal, I guess, in those areas, right? In fact, the mayor of Jacksonville does not live in the city of Jacksonville. He lives in that like little 3 or 4% of the consolidated government jurisdiction that is not the city of Jacksonville. So in those places, the city, when I'm talking about political autonomy, the city's like, look, I have a level of comfort that I still have control and can hold my elected officials accountable over what they do with city tax dollars. The only places in the country that have both a partial consolidation and have what I think of as sort of like an outnumbered city population at the center of that are all in Louisiana. It's us, Baton Rouge, and Houma. I just want to let that sink in for a second. Like, only in Louisiana do we do it like this. I don't think that there are a lot of us, when we look at like, how are we going to improve our community? How are we going to be a better place to live? How should we govern ourselves? What sort of government and government culture do we want to have? We're like, I don't know. What are other places in Louisiana doing, right? Just want to let that sink in. Number 2 point is, I think, the fundamental flaw in our charter. And it has gotten better since the 2018 charter amendments. I don't want to be up here whining, and it has gotten better. But the city still lacks autonomy. What do I mean by that? I get a lot of pushback on this sometimes because people are like, when does the parish ever hurt the city? I'm trying to see if Kevin's going to make eye contact with me there, because I've heard that a lot, and I get it, right? Because there are plenty of times when I was up here on this side, or working for the guy sitting in that chair, I had to get votes from people like Kevin or Jay or whatever to make things work, and I get that. I think my point of autonomy is, in a more functional political system, I wouldn't need for people like Kevin to have goodwill. I would be able to have only people who are making that decision who are accountable at the ballot box to me, period. You know, if Kevin does something that I appreciate, I will thank him. It's great. We'll love it. If Kevin does something I don't like, there's nothing I can do about it, right? I don't always, and I've told this to Andy, so I don't think I'm speaking out of school, I don't always agree with Andy, Councilman Nakhan on the city council, but he's my councilman. And like, I'm fine with that arrangement, you know? He's at least there responsive to his district, and only his district can count. So what does that mean in sort of like big picture outcomes, right? Because there's all sorts of issues like the federal courthouse that kind of set for a long time, embroiled in a city-parish thing. But what does it mean, I think, in the big picture? When we started this in '96, let me back up. I don't know how much you guys have gotten into like the LCG budget, so I'll give you like the brief, short. City General Fund pays all the bills for consolidated services. And so when there's a thing that we're sharing between the city and the parish, it's the City General Fund that cuts that check. The parish reimburses the city a certain amount every year for like its share of that consolidated cost, right? It's about 5% of the overall budget. It's not a ton of stuff. There's only like a 5% like Venn diagram of stuff that isn't just city and isn't just parish, right? But that's kind of what we're talking about. Well, in '96, the parish was putting up somewhere around like $3-4 million a year. It varies a lot, but it was around the $3-4 million. And in the last 10 years, it's been around 4 or 5. There have been years where it's been 8. There's been years where it's been less. Depends on how the parish is doing really when it comes to like its revenue or whatever. But that's the basic gist, right? Over that same time period, the city's general fund has gone from like $40 million to $92 million. And that's, I'm going to tell you, that number is, I made that artificially low. It's actually gone to $105 million in 2019. But that increase, that $13 million increase, was the increase in the police and fire millages that the city enacted between that time period. And I just want to talk apples to apples, like the millages and tax base that was in place in '96, that was in place in 2019, it went up to $92 million. So LCG grew, LCG grew by $50 million. And the parish's additional contribution to that was $2 million. Meanwhile, the population outside of the city of Lafayette has well outpaced the city's population. Population of the other municipalities well outpaced the city of Lafayette's population. And while I know that people are never satisfied with the level of service that they get from their government, there are plenty of additional services that are being provided outside of the city of Lafayette. And so that's the system that we have. And here's the problem. If I don't like that, if I don't think that's fair, these are all decisions that have been made year to year to year, administration to administration, council to council. But if I don't like that as a city resident, what am I supposed to do about it? Because I only have the ability to elect or unelect a very small percentage of this body up till 2019. 2020, we're going to see how that goes, right? We've got a new system. We've got a city council that they have to worry now about like those types of decisions. But this is what I'm talking about, that at the end of the day, I have to depend on the kindness of the people outside of the city of Lafayette. And as a voter, that's not always a good position to be in. So here's my recommendations. And I'm sure you got a lot of other recommendations, and you're thinking yourself, like, what are we supposed to do? The Protect the City Committee came out with a bunch of stuff, and who paid attention to that? And we're going to come out with a bunch of stuff. Who's going to pay attention to that? So, like, I take this all with a grain of salt, and I, again, commend you for getting involved in this. But I think we should be talking about functional consolidation. I think the problem that we have is that we talk only about consolidation from the perspective of our elected officials and our elected offices. I was talking to a political science professor a year or so ago, and I was, said something about how crazy consolidation is. This is like a professional, right? And she was like, consolidation is not crazy. Like, consolidation is a good idea. She's like, it's crazy the way Lafayette's done it. It's crazy the way, frankly, that those 12 other cities around the country have done it. You don't need to consolidate these seats to realize efficiencies and savings in government. You just need some agreements in place. You just need for the city and the parish to come to some agreements about how we're going to cost share. That's it. Before consolidation, the Parks Department was consolidated. We had a city government, we had a parish government, and we had one Parks Department. There was an IGA that laid out, here's how the parish is going to pay towards this, here's what they're not going to pay, right? I think one of those agreements was that all the employees would be city employees and be paid for by the city. Like, these things are very possible. I want to commend Kevin and Annette individually, but also globally, both councils, for starting some of that work. You guys tackled the Parks Department in the budget. I love that, because that just sort of was a recognition that, like, this is the reality of things, you know? The parish has the benefit of having, while they are low, of having dedicated millages for roads and bridges that are larger than the dedicated millages that the city has. And so I think it makes total sense to think about a situation where the parish continues to operate the roads and bridges department. You have a millage that funds it, and it's the city that makes a capital contribution for any of those projects that happen inside the city. You know, I think it makes sense for the city to handle something like the planning and zoning department, right? We don't even have zoning outside of the city of Lafayette. The parish can contract with whatever sort of code enforcement needs to happen. These are very simple things. Like, at the Protect the City Committee, some of the testimony was like, look, we're talking about 5% of the budget is actually consolidated, is actually handled in that cost allocation formula table, right? And the point at that time was like, you know, it's pretty minor, and it is. You know, you can actually go through and make a list of all of those things that are in the cost allocation formula now, and you can start divvying it out. You know, you start doing that work. And now that you have a city council who has to be accountable to the city and only city voters, and you have a parish council that only has to be accountable to the parish, right? Those two bodies are uniquely qualified at this point to start working these details out. That is my recommendation. And whether that is part of some sort of, you know, new separate charter, my preference would be that that's what you do. But either way, I think you've got to sort of keep doing the work that the council started doing earlier and start divvying that out, because, you know, the cost allocation formula, the way we do this, if y'all have not gotten into it yet, it is not transparent. It is dissatisfying. It's the best we can do. I mean, I guess it's not like, you know, it's not nefarious in any way. It's just not very good way to do it, I don't think. And people year in and year out, councils year in and year out, the administrations year in and year out, struggle with it, don't understand it. In Baton Rouge, one of the differences between their consolidation and ours is that's how they run their ship. They don't have these cost allocation tables. They have individual intergovernmental agreements to handle who's paying what for every type of government service that's shared, right? That 5%, that little sliver, that Venn diagram, that's all you got to tackle. What this does is, I think, the two main goals, like the parish needs stability and it needs the ability to provide services to the parish as a whole. And we live in a place that is fiscally conservative and is not going to go out and just pass a bunch of new taxes. They expect to have those services provided for them for what they pay, right? And that's always been sort of the struggle for the people who are sitting at these seats. The city just needs autonomy. Like, the city does not have a ton of dedicated millages, but the city has 2 penny sales taxes that bring in $100 million a year. And 35% of that is just capital. So it could be for a road, it could be for a bridge, it could be for a building. The city has a lot more money than the parish and has a lot more flexibility on what to do with that money. And so we've got a really, I'm just going to hammer this home, you've got a really good position to say the parish, line out those dedicated millages, what you have the ability to pay for and you know, and then let the city fill in the gaps on what that is. Because what the city doesn't need, the city doesn't need money. The city needs autonomy. The city needs the ability to chart its own course. It needs the ability to hold its own elected officials responsible for the actions they take. Period. Now, in the past, and in the future. But if you don't listen to me, and nobody usually does, I have a backup ask, and that's we got to find a way, if we're going to like stay in this system, which I think is, like I said, inherently conflicted, and it's not the people sitting in these seats, it's the system and the position that it puts the people who sit in these seats. If we're going to keep trying, even though the 2018 amendments I thought were a pretty good like try at like fixing this thing, we have got to be better at managing conflicts, because the way we handle conflicts cannot be driven solely by politics, because all that's going to do is make this people like me who think that the city isn't getting a fair shake in this arrangement, it only makes us more entrenched. It only wins us more recruits. Every time there's a dispute up here and the city isn't able to do something, and people watch and see the city council wanting to do something and they're not able to do so because of some rule, because of some, thing, some interpretation of the charter, they don't care if that's a good interpretation or a bad interpretation. They just know it looks like their city council can't accomplish anything. And so if we're going to stay in this form of government, we got to figure out a way not to have those conflicts. I think a way to do that is to recognize that the city council should be able to hire its own attorney for a specific purpose. And I think those specific purposes should be for what we just talked about. How do we handle those things that were not really fully addressed in the transition? What do we do for joint decisions? How does the budget process work? And how do we work out these IGAs? Because intergovernmental agreements. Because if you've got the city and the parish both trying to have an arm's length, fair sort of negotiation about who pays for what, if there's some procedural hiccup that's well, we had a negotiation, but in the end, we can actually just veto whatever the city does, that's just not working. That's just not a fair, equitable way to handle these things. So that's my backup plan. And I know that there is a lot of worry, fear, consternation about the D word. I think that functional consolidation is the way around that. But if you don't, I think this is the way that we have to be better neighbors. You know that saying, better fences make good neighbors, or good fences make good neighbors, or whatever it is? If we're all comfortable with the situation and we all understand our place and where it is, we're going to get along better. If there's always some political maneuvering or technical sort of aspect of something that's being pulled, we're just always going to have conflict. So that's all I got to say. I am happy to take any questions. I like my little note here. All my opinions are my own. I actually took off work today to come do this. And if you don't believe, you can ask my kids, because they have to hear this all the time. So anyway, I appreciate it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm sure we do. And so, Kevin?
Hey, Kev. Thank you for coming out. I appreciate it. I've been knowing you for a long time, and we work together, and we do have a lot of things in common. We do have some things that we might be different on, but you brought up some good points. And, I've been on the council 10 years now, and it was always a struggle with certain situations. And a couple of notes I made, when I was chair, I think my first term, I was trying to fix the parish's shortfall in regards to funding for courthouse, jailhouse. We were bleeding quite a bit in a lot of areas, and I had put together the future funding source needs committee, and they worked at it for over a year, and we had recommendations on how to fix the issues with the funding, but it fell on deaf ears, and at that time, we couldn't get the city council to support the parish council in getting those to the voters. So I think what people need to realize is not only the city's autonomy that you need, but there was so many years the parish was neglected because of the fact that we had 5 city council members versus 4 basically rural guys, So I think in some ways the parish had the same heartburn that you guys are feeling now, because there was a lot of times we wanted to fix the parish, but we didn't have the support of the city council. And then there's sometimes the city had a project, AKA the horse farm, where their own city, Lafayette Council at the time, didn't have the votes to support Joey Durrell and the horse farm, but it took myself, Jay Castile, and to go along with a couple other city council members to get things done. So there's a lot of times that the parish guy, so to speak, has gotten projects done for the city when their own city council perhaps didn't support that. So if we look back down the history, I definitely agree that you want to be able to vote and you want to hold your person accountable. But if we think back, Lafayette has gotten a lot of projects because of the consolidation government at the time, that these parish guys, including myself, looked at it as, hey, if it's going to help the city, it doesn't affect my constituents, then why would I neglect the city of getting what they want? So therefore, we supported the horse farm, and we got the horse farm. If it was reversed back in that day, you would not have that park today because you didn't have the support of the city council, because it took two parish guys to help get you there. So I definitely hear and I definitely understand this side of the fence and that side of the fence. So I'm not here to disagree or say that you're wrong. I think you're correct, but it needs to be known that things have been done and tried several times to focus on the parish, but under the form of government, 95% of everything was focused on the city of Lafayette. And I agree, and I think I was running for the office at the time the Charter Commission was put together, and I sat in there, and I don't believe in putting another Charter Commission together because it's going to do exactly what it did in whatever year that was. They're not going to understand it. They're going to come to the conclusion of, we're just going to get a divorce because we can't figure it out. So I definitely agree that is no interest of me. I have no desire to vote and send something to the voters in my district, in this parish, to say deconsolidate or don't, but there's no solutions. There's nothing that the people can actually see how the function of government works. So I definitely think that we have to come up with solutions and not get down the road and waste another 10 years and say, well, we're just going to deconsolidate because that's all we can come up with. So to your point, it's very tricky. You are very aware of the budget and you've worked here, and I'm on the same page with you. So I like the thought of functional. I don't think we need to deconsolidate. I'm a very advocate of helping the parish get out of the city's checkbook, right, with the parish parks. And I think IGAs are the way to go for the future of the parish. I think we can negotiate and work with other municipalities on drainage and roads and bridges. I think that's really a no-brainer. It just needs to be looked at. But those points I wanted to make were that, you know, the parish hasn't had its own autonomy in the past because we had city officials that said, I don't want to pay any more parish taxes for the jail. I don't want to pay any more parish taxes for the courthouse complex. I mean, so it has, in my opinion, it has probably benefited a little bit more on project sides and getting some things done, but on the other side, it's failed tremendously. And I know the arguments that's going on with the current city council, and they want the mayor, and they want I understand it. I think we have to be smart, and we have to look at how can you do this without blowing it all up. I don't think you need to blow it up. I like the fact that the Jacksonville mayor, who lives in 5% of the population, is the mayor of Jacksonville, where 95%, I mean, that's amazing. And I know the argument is, well, we want our own mayor, but we also want to vote on our parish president because we live inside the parish. And so, you know, the city of Scott has their mayor. Everybody has their own mayor. City of Lafayette is kind of in a marriage with the parish. So we all vote on a parish president who represents the city and the parish. And I know that gives people heartburn. But regardless, I think whoever you put in, not everybody's going to agree with every administration. I just wonder if Scott can't vote. Never mind. I answered the wrong question. Scott votes for the parish president and the city of mayor, and vice versa. And I know the argument is, well, why should we have Broussard vote for our city mayor of Lafayette? So, I mean, I don't know how you fix all that. I do know that if you want to fix IGAs, if you want to help the parish get more out of your general fund, I think that's a lot more easy and doable with intergovernment agreements. I just think let's just not get down the road of coming up with a solution of, okay, we can't agree to anything, so we're just going to go back to the voters for the third time of deconsolidation without any future plans, or what does it look like? So, I mean, we have to your point, we have a lot of questions to ask, but we also have to dig deep and try to make this thing work where we're not to the point of just divorce, you know?
So I have a question, right?
Yeah.
What prevents the council from getting involved in the conversation, making decisions? I mean, you're voting on the budgets now. Why do you have to have another attorney and do intergovernment agreements when it's already assigned to you to do it? What's the process? Yeah, in the budget. So what's,
Yeah.
please.
I'll just finish up and I'll turn it over. Me personally, I don't think there's a problem with figuring out the intergovernment agreement. I think the problem is, I think if the city council feels like if they want to do something in regards to the city or get their own opinion, they want to have their own lawyer in regards to certain situations. As far as for the budget, the current attorney and drafting up an IGA, that can be done. We don't need a separate attorney in regards to figuring out an IGA agreement between Public Works and what they're going to do and what the city's going to do. I think that came more from the fact that administration and the city council disagreed on something and they wanted a second opinion, and I think they felt that that's their right to get a separate opinion because they felt that the current attorney works for both and they didn't feel like they had the fair representation, if I had to guess. So,
Kevin, you were going to say something while he was talking to you.
Oh, I'm sure I was. No, look, Kevin knows me. We've had these discussions a lot. Like, I guess, you know, I would rather live in a city where the horse farm doesn't get approved by a city council, but I can vote them out of office for doing that, you know? Actually, in the way I remember that vote, we had 4 out of 5 city votes. It's just, in those days, right, City-Parish Council, if the 4 rural guys were against something, then we had to have unanimous decision among the city guys to do that. And so, you know, there's a lot of votes that went down where, you know, and again, I want to say this publicly, like a big reason why there is not a giant list of what has the parish done to hurt the city is because of people like Kevin Knockin and Jay Castile most of the time, who were willing to like have some empathy and understand like what was going on. So, like, I don't want to be all whiny up here.
Brian?
First, to answer your question, like Kevin said, that 5%, I'm dedicated to trying to iron that out, fix that up, the allocation thing. And Kevin, thank you for coming. First, my question is the term functional consolidation. You explain a little bit what that looks like.
Sure.
You said you did all your studies. In your studies, are there any governments that are functional consolidation? Is that a word, or is that, I mean, is that a true government term?
So I'll make, I saw a study from like some years ago, like 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago, I don't remember, where they were talking about the differences between what they called political and functional consolidation, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense to me. No, I haven't seen it used anywhere else.
It's not an official term.
This is how I would think about it. Like I say functional consolidation, and it kind of sounds like, well, functional it's a good functional consolidation. I literally mean you consolidate certain functions. So that happens all the time everywhere, right? Like there are parishes where the city and the parishes have all agreed to have a drainage board that runs the whole drainage system for the parish. I think it's a great idea. Honestly, like I've developed real estate in a lot of different places in the country, and I would much rather go to a place that has like one single like authority on like here's how the drainage system has to work. So the problem, I guess, with answering that question is there are so many examples of how you consolidate functions that it's like I could just say that like Lake Charles, Cox Parish, you know, if I just threw a dart on a map, we'd probably find one. I think what the trick and the challenge would be here in Lafayette is that we would have to consolidate more than just a couple of functions, right? I think if we really wanted for the parish to be stable, you know, you'd want to like think about how, you know, that long list of things that need to be consolidated. But there's a lot of stuff that the parish does, can, should do by itself on its own with its own money, the whole bit. So, and likewise the city, right? This stuff already happens. Like the city runs a utility department, the city has a police department, the city has a fire department, you know.
So your concern is we are, I think, from what the definition of functional, we're doing functional stuff together now to extent.
No, I mean, and
Except for 5%.
well, no, I'm sorry to interrupt. What I don't like about what it is now is that our elected officials are consolidated. That is the
So
part.
you're not talking about your concern is the officials, not the function of the
Right.
government, because the government is functioning, in my opinion, decently, and there are some things, like I admitted, that we need to work on, but
Right.
other than that, it's.
Yeah, I'm talking about the fact that we're only one of like 12 places in the country that have given up our political autonomy for the purpose of having consolidated functions. I don't think you have to have both of those things. I think you can consolidate the functions of government and hit all of those points, have all the efficiencies and everything else, without having this year in and year out, because it didn't start now, it's been going, right? Because then I think this was the point I wanted to make when Kevin was talking. The system sets up these conflicts where people can't tell who's actually responsible for what, you know? And we've had parish presidents who have been, you know, accused of being like too friendly to the city, and we've had parish presidents who've been accused of being too friendly to the parish. Like, that's never gonna work, you know? And in a place like Jacksonville, what, I'm gonna be the parish president in Jacksonville that's like too friendly to that 3% of people? Like, that doesn't work. Everybody's gonna be too friendly to the city, right? So, like, that is all I care about. Like, if, you know, I think, Kevin, you used this phrase a few months ago, and it was one of those Kevin knock-in things, so I didn't know, like, how serious you were. But you were like, you know, like, what's the divorce settlement look like? Like, how do we, like, get out of this thing, and, like, we all go, like, our own pace, but we still, you know, my aunt and uncle have been divorced for 20 years. Like, they still see each other. Like, he goes and, like, fixes stuff at her house when it's broken. Like, there's still a way that we can all be friends, all be cooperative, all work together. But I don't have to, like, depend on the kindness of other people who I don't, at the end of the day, no city resident can go to the ballot box and do a thing about it, you know? And let's not forget, like, one of the things that drives me nuts in Lafayette is, and maybe it's because our parish name and our city name are the same, right? We're always doing this thing where we say city and we say parish, but what we really mean is shorthand for city and people who don't live in the city. Because I get 2 tax bills, you know? So sometimes people will be like, well, you know, I shop in Lafayette, or I do this, or I care about Lafayette, and I know people do, you know? And I'm like, come over here, I just got my tax bill, and you can pay it, and then I'll feel a lot better about you having the same vote as me, right? That's it. It's about who's controlling my tax dollars, and am I able to hold them accountable at the ballot box or not? Whether I agree with them or disagree with them, whether I'm happy they voted against the horse farm or not, that's it. Sorry, I interrupted you.
I'm finished. That was my question. Thank you.
Well, my hope, Kevin, is that does exist, right? You still have a vote. You can vote your councilman in, you can vote your councilman out, and I do understand what you're saying, but it just appears to me like, and help me, guide me, right? So I see two sides of the conversation here. When we use the word functional, I think in terms of practical, right? I'm not thinking philosophical, right? So, but it sounds to me like one of the arguments here is a political, philosophical argument about government. And then the other part seems to be that there are some practical, tangible things that we need to iron out. You said 3 things. What does, you know, perhaps it should have been taken care of or could have been better taken care of in a transition committee. You know, what is a city vote versus what is a parish vote? You said, you know, what is the procedure for joint meetings? You talked about how do we resolve disputes. So I'm taking it that you're saying these are things that are absent in the charter. Is that what you're saying? That'd be the functional side when I'm thinking functional.
Here's how I would say it, Bobby. Those things are in the charter. We disagree about what the charter says. I think it's very clear that the city council has the authority to hire their own attorney for a specific purpose. I don't think they have to justify it to anybody. I think if they say, we want to hire an attorney to help us with this specific purpose, and this is how much we're going to pay them, that's what the charter says. We don't agree on what the charter says. I think the charter is very clear that if there is a line item that is paid for by the city of Lafayette, then it's the city council's vote. If there's a line item that's paid for by the parish, it's the parish council's vote. And it's only those line items that are truly mixed, and there's some of them, they exist, but then that's a joint decision. That hasn't been the way things have worked. What we've settled on is like, well, there's a joint department because like there's some parish money in there or vice versa, right? I don't think that's in the charter. And so that's kind of why my fallback, Bobby, on some of this, like, because you're right. Like, if we're not going to put the political, philosophical, sort of like civics class stuff aside, right? Like, if we're trying to figure out what's the tangible thing right in front of us that we can do to like make this better, it's those things. I think the problem is we don't agree on what the charter says, which is why my advice is let the city council have an attorney, because at that point, it still has to be a political compromise. Like the city council can get an attorney, but they're still going to have to go to the parish council and get their votes to agree to it. But at that point, it's a more arm's length, fair sort of situation. So does that make sense, Bobby?
Yes, thank you so much. Will?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in on that conversation because I agree with Kevin, and I saw this play out when our new form of government took effect. When the administration laid off LCG employees in the Parks and Rec Department, and the city council had an emergency meeting to try to use city dollars to save those positions, they couldn't get a second from the parish council to let the meeting continue. So Kevin is right when he says, as a city person wanting to use city money on city functions, I need the goodwill of parish council members who don't pay into that city bucket to say, okay.
I agree.
And that's kind of, I think that's a difficult pill to swallow. Like, that doesn't make sense. And I don't know if we have to blow up the government and deconsolidate, but we have to interpret our charter differently, that if something is city only, it has to be city only. If the ARPA money is going to the city of Lafayette, the parish council should not be voting. And we see this time and time again. So I completely agree, and I wanted to bring the conversation back to this issue of settling disputes. If we are not going to deconsolidate, and we're going to stay consolidated, but we have to settle these disputes better. If there's two people, just high level, common sense, if there's two people who disagree, they can go to a judge, and the judge will make a ruling, and as a society, we agree to adhere to what that judge says, and move on with our lives. But with our current form of local government, if the city council and the parish council don't agree, the judge is the city parish attorney and who he or she decides to represent, who he or she decides to defend. So every dispute between our two councils are going to come to one appointed, not elected individual. Are they not the most powerful person in our parish?
And look, that conflict, just to be clear, that existed under Mike Hebert, that existed under Pat Ottinger, that existed under Steve Dupuy. Like, it's always been that the city parish attorney works for the mayor president, and this relationship with the council is like complicated, right? What we did is we made it twice as complicated, because now it's not just the mayor president's office and the city parish council, it's the mayor president's office, the city council, and the parish council. And the city if the city council and the parish council are doing their jobs, there are going to be times when they don't agree, right? I mean, there are going to be times where Kevin's doing his job by voting no, and Annette's doing her job by voting yes. And so that's just a conflict on a plate waiting to happen. I just don't understand how one attorney can represent two parties that have a genuine dispute.
And then the last thing I'd just like to say is, like, we have 10 questions the parish council gave us to respond to, and you've answered one of them, but I just wanted to bring it back up and give you another moment if you wanted to add anything, because I would assume this needs to be our report, needs to answer this question. And that question is, would a repeal of the Fix the Charter amendments and a return to fully consolidated city-parish council better serve the interests of the city of Lafayette and the parish of Lafayette? If you just would like to respond to that.
No, and I don't, to be clear, I haven't heard that come up, and so I'm only saying it because it's in the resolution. I don't fear it, because I don't think that anybody really wants to do that. But it's not only the fact that, like, city residents, voters now have, like, a city council, right? That's something. There's also some other stuff in that amendment. You know, one of those amendments is that, you know, LUS cannot be sort of handed over to the control of a private company without a vote now. Like before, in the old charter, the only time you needed to go to a vote for the city was for a sale of LUS. So that's pretty important. Like, because when we talk about $600 million budget or whatever, what? 400 million of that is LUS, right? So that's a big deal. But yeah, no, I think it'd be a bad idea.
So just a question, right? Help me. I got my, my elementary brain rapid. I needed the pictures. I'm the guy that needs the pictures,
I know,
right?
I'm sorry, I had no pictures.
So if we're hiring a city attorney that's in, because there's a different opinion, we don't agree with the city attorney, the council is hiring its own attorney to refute the opinion of the city attorney, city parish attorney. So both of the arguments, where does that go? Those arguments go before a judge? I mean,
No,
who wins the dispute? Both of them, you've hired them to argue your point. He's arguing the other point. How do you resolve the conflict without it
right.
costing a whole lot more money?
Well, like, one point is the charter requires that it only be for a specific purpose. So I think sometimes this gets lost in the nomenclature that, like, oh, the city council can have like another chair pulled up right here and they can be like, just hit the button. I'm sure they would love that, be honest, but like, you can't do that. Like, charter says, like, it has to be like a specific purpose, right? So there's got to be like a thing, like, I want your opinion on this particular issue. So that kind of narrows that scope. But look, here's the thing. The city attorney for that particular specific issue might agree with the city parish attorney. Like, who knows, right? It's also but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, it's the city council and their powers and duties under the charter, and it's the parish council. Their attorneys are just there to advise them. And it's smart to listen to your attorney, but I mean, if the city council doesn't agree with something that the city parish attorney tells them, if the parish council doesn't agree with something that the city parish attorney tells them, they don't have to listen, right? So I mean, it's an informal sort of like arbiter of what the law is, but at the end of the day, they can do whatever they want. So I think the real purpose would be, look, I practiced law for like 3 years, right? I'm by no means like a seasoned lawyer, thank God. But I always really liked it if the other side had an attorney, right? Sometimes when you're selling a house or you're buying a house, you really want the other party to have like a broker, real estate broker, because then you're not, like, attorneys are like, yeah, I hear you. And then they look at the law and they say, okay, here's your best position. They can be dispassionate. The two lawyers can talk to each other, work out, like, getting an attorney involved is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's the thing that, like, settles the dispute.
Thank you. Will, you did?
Yeah. Hey, great point. So first off, Will, I'm going to tell you, when it went down, I apologize. I couldn't get the second. I would tell you the parish council definitely put some gas on the fire to heat that up. And I can tell you that's a wrong move on the parish. I was the chairman at the time. We should have got a second. I'm not mad at Brian. It is what it is. But I think from that point moving forward, we realized, hey, that can't happen. And so I do apologize for that, because that does make a good point. So I guess the one thing I would tell you is, I would love nothing more than to come to a meeting, and if it's parish issue, parish money, then we vote. If it's city, then the city votes on it. I'm in favor. If the city wants to hire a separate attorney and we have to change the charter to read that they have the autonomy to get their own lawyer and they want to pay 100% of it, they got the money, go for it. You know, I mean, I don't see, that's not a problem. If that's a charter amendment you got to bring to the voters that gives the city the option to have their a separate attorney on any matter, not just, that doesn't change anything. You know, the other thing is, I would never want to repeal, because finally, for the first time, the city does have their own city people that you can vote in and vote out. But now your tax bill is, you getting taxation with representation. And the fact that you live in the city, but you also vote for a parish guy too, and you vote for a city council. So that's a great benefit. I mean, that fixes a lot of the issues that before, to your point, was, well, Kevin, I don't like the way you voted on that. Well, now if you in my district, you vote for your parish council and you vote. So some people vote for Knock, Andy and Kevin. Some people vote for Knock and vote for Gilbo. So, I mean, you get a chance to vote us out if you don't like the way we voted. So I think that fixed the, one of your big problems, and everybody's problem, because I heard it with Kenneth Boudreaux. He come to a meeting back in the day, Kenneth hold up his 2 tax bills and he'd rub it in my face and say, well, look, I got 2 tax bills and everything, you know. So I think that has gone away. So I like the word functional. I like looking at intergovernment agreements. I'm with Brian on figuring out ways parish can get out of the city's pocket, but at the same time, we want to make sure that these intergovernment agreements make sense and not sense financially or take advantage of one another, but how does it look like if we start the budget process and start looking at doing the IGAs? I just think overall, some of these things I think are a little bit, I'm not going to say petty, but I mean, if you want your own city attorney, man, what you need my help for to get your own city attorney? I'm not going to pay for it, and that's okay, because you got the money, right? So if that's what you want to do, then, and that's great. Have I been on administration where the parish wanted to do something and the influence of the parish president kind of made the parish attorney like, well, you know, absolutely, it happens. Let's just, definitely to answer that question, I would not repeal. Finally, the parish has the opportunity, and we're doing great things, because now we were able to get rid of the parks, we're able to do that. We're working on the, you know, the parish courthouse situations, that's asbestos, we're dealing with the jail, we're dealing with future. I like what we're doing. It's fun. For the first time, I think the parish is able to actually get some work done. Do I think the city now can focus on the city? Yes, but yes, to Will's point, and I think all of our point is, how do we stop picking and fighting? How do we handle disputes? And how can we make sure that this administration and future administrations doesn't pin the parish against the city and the city against the parish by outlining the issues? And if the city has, in my opinion, more than 50, 60, 80% of the deal, and it's a city issue, then let the city vote on it, you know? And if the city don't like it, they don't get what they want, you vote them out. That is what it is, you know? But I don't think we need to blow it up. I think it just needs to sit down and get everybody to the table and figure out what the IGAs look at. What are the things that you can fix now? I don't know if you can get where you want to be, where, you know, different department. I don't think it has to, I don't think you got to blow all that up. I think you need to look at the areas that the parish can save money or save the city money and functionally still do good service for our community without having to blow everything up. And I think that's the goal.
The administration would still have to put forth the budget, right?
They can put forth the budget. The 2 councils would have to get together. I would think we'd have to get with our attorney and get with Laurie and say, look, you know, we want to try to see what this looks like, you know. I mean, you might uncover that you can do it, and you might uncover that you can do it, but somebody's going to be short. That's the thing. We have to figure out what's the, I think we said it earlier, what's You know, if you're saying yes to one thing or no to one, then there's a yes to something else. So, I mean, that's the thing we don't know, the unforeseen.
This is like hyper-technical, but I think Lori has mentioned several times, like moving to like a fund-based budget approach. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Because then this is where the money's coming from, this is how we're spending it.
Yeah, cut and dry.
Yeah.
I think if we can get there, that'd be good. But I'm in favor of the IGAs. I'm in favor of keeping this thing together. I don't believe in sending it to the voters for deconsolidation for the fourth time. That we absolutely shooting ourselves in the foot. And can we stop putting committees together that stay for a year and come up with recommendations and we don't get anywhere? Please, I'm so tired of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin, thank you so much for coming. Apparently, you've inspired lots of conversation, as usual, once again.
I usually do.
I have actually pressed my button off and on about 3 times, listening to all the conversations, trying to take it all in. And I just, one of the things about legal, the question about legal came up, and, that happened right at the beginning of this new charter, this new council. We had that issue about, hiring our own attorney, and I kind of looked at it as, when you go to a doctor, you want a second opinion. I mean, you don't like what you hear first, so you want to hear another opinion. And we weren't maybe given that opportunity. And maybe the opinion, like you said, would have been the same as the first one, but maybe we would have settled better and thinking, okay, I guess we cannot do that. So that's kind of how I looked at the legal issue. And I would really still like to see that we, as a city, have our own legal department. As far as IGAs, I believe that is the way to go. And I think, I'm like Kevin, I'm not in favor, like all of us, I don't believe, we don't want to blow the whole thing up. We're looking at functional ways to make what we're living in currently exist. And I think IGAs, like the other municipalities do. I mean, if they want to do something with the parish, they create an IGA too. So it's not like we're we're inventing something that hasn't been done before. So to me, that is definitely the way to go. As far as disputes between councils, we are not going to always have a Kevin Nake on the council who is always being favorable to things in the city. So, we can't rely on that. We have to understand that we need to put some protections in place for the city, for the parish, because we don't know who's going to be on these councils. So I feel like kind of digging deeper into that functional, idea of separating what is the city, what is the parish, where the money goes, kind of making it clearer for all of us to understand so that when those decisions do come up, it's like, okay, this is based on this information we have. This is how we are going to vote or how we're going to support this particular initiative. So, so I feel like that's also important. And your first recommendation about the functional consolidation and your, as far as going to the legal as maybe your next option, I have said from the beginning that I do believe functional consolidation is the way to go. And, we figured little bit at a time. We talked about having a mayor of the city of Lafayette. And this is in no way a reflection of current administration, but again, going to that autonomy issue of having that person living in the city of Lafayette, representing the city of Lafayette, the 3 or 5% person that's living outside of the major city, to me, again, that's 95% is that. We are at a 50.2%. We are at a critical mass point at this point in our juncture that we need a person within the city of Lafayette representing, the city of Lafayette. So, so that was top on the list. And kind of listing off, the other things that we talked about, how to break it up. The, illegal, the conversation of having an elected police chief. I mean, that's another one that's come up in some of the conversations. So I'm not suggesting we tackle all of those things. We look at how to work within the system we have so that we have more clarity in where the tax dollars are going, who represents what, and then, kind of like when we did the split of the charter, we kind of bit off a little bit, but we didn't bite off as much as we maybe should have to make it run efficiently, as we saw right after the first budget hearing. So, but I think at this point, we've learned that we need to make sure we have some of those things in place, and then we bite off a little bit more of the apple as we go. But, I think all the points. I think we're all on the same page to some extent in terms of understanding that what we have is working to some extent, but we could make it better. We could make it much better for our constituents as far as representation, because, while the parish may have a decision or a vote on something within the city, again, maybe they represented them, they've been voted by the parish person, but also if someone in the city, you have a conflict with those two things. I still believe that the representation is not as clear as it could be in terms of specific city issues and specific parish issues. So, along those lines, again, I just want to thank you for your presentation. I feel like it was very, very clear, easy for us to understand in terms of where we are and what possibilities we have as far as moving forward. And I would just ask that we entertain those ideas very seriously in terms of this functional component. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook.
Kevin, I too want to thank you for your presentation today, and well thought out. I also want you to know that I read your letters and your nationwide report from all the cities in comparison with great amusement.
So you're the guy that read it then?
Yeah. Apparently.
Yeah.
But anyhow, but thank you for that. I also want to thank you also for coming with answers. I've had a lot of people tell me, I've got a lot of questions for you, Paul, a lot of questions. Said, I don't want questions, I want answers, because questions don't do us any good. But what I've got out of this today is that you said something about building a drainage board, which I think that'd be a very good idea. Also, the intergovernment relations and negotiations that we could have. I agree with that, and you think about hiring the attorney. I also want to point out that in this present thing that I feel today where we are is that we've got a mayor-president right now that is most aggressive, and mayors around their other municipalities that want to work together so beautifully. I mean, Broussard, Mayor Bork, and Ritter in Youngsville, and my goodness, what's going on in Scott, and gosh, Karen Crow. Yeah. So anyhow, I think all these people are working well together today, and I've seen an opportunity at this time better than we ever had before. So, but anyhow, I want to thank you for your well thought out presentation today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, sorry, Kevin, hold on now.
Thanks. Kevin, thanks for coming in today, and I've read your reports also.
Okay.
It's just
That's
two.
two, yeah.
So I guess what I'm hearing is, I worked in government for almost 20 years, I guess you'd call it. And the department that I ran, we had a lot of intergovernmental agreements with the different departments inside and outside the parish. I agree with Kevin. I think that's the way to go. Trying to get deconsolidated again is, I think, maybe just, it's run its course. But strongly agree with getting possibly a city attorney to represent the city. And the only way that can happen is, the council can request it to be put in the budget every year, right? And the city parish president just has to accept it and put it in the budget. I think it's fair. And it saves us a lot of money than going into fighting deconsolidation again. I think intergovernment agreements work because, you can only interpret them one way. Once it's in writing and signed off, that's the way it goes. Mm-hmm. So, just thanks for your time. I know you spent numerous years working on this, and thanks for coming today. Appreciate it.
Outstanding. All right. Next, we're going to hear from Mr. Robert.
Take a 5-minute break.
You want to take a 5-minute break? Yeah. That's good with me. You need a 5-minute break? Stretch it out. All right. 5-minute break. Yeah, I got you. Well, if you guys are ready to get started. They coming, they coming. Makes me feel a little weird to bang that gavel. Outstanding. Well, I just want to recognize Mr. Robert Benoit. Thank you so much for coming. He's Chief of Staff for Mayor Gilroy, and of course he's coming with a wealth of information and experience. I think he was involved all the way back in the 1992 original committee to form do the whole consolidation thing. So stop that. Robert, thank you so much for coming. Appreciate your time today. We know it's valuable.
Yeah, I was asked to come here and give a historical perspective on consolidation. I began working at the Lafayette Police when I was in college. I became engineering planner in '76. Then I became road manager, then operations manager, then public works director. Was public works director when consolidation occurred, and following that, I was director of planning, zoning, and codes. And then I worked for Department of Natural Resources under the Blanco and Jindal administrations, and came back when Joel became parish president. Go ahead, Jenny. This is I don't think I sent y'all this yet, but I want to send y'all this. Y'all may have seen it already. This is Case Studies of County Consolidations. It's a book that was written portraying a number of counties across the country, which was written by Dr. Hunter Bacow, who's actually from North Carolina, I believe, and lived in Lafayette and taught political science at UL around the time this stuff went down. And just some comments from the book I think are worth articulating to you. It talked about a concentrated effort of civic leaders and interest prompted the successful consolidation of Lafayette, not the definitive theoretical approach as we scholars have hoped to observe. And what I'm trying to do here is let y'all know how consolidation occurred, who drove the train, and how it went down. Some of the quotes from the book was that talked about Lafayette civic leaders pushed to reform local government in the city of Lafayette. The Chamber of Commerce was instrumental in promoting professional government to its citizens. More could be achieved if there were a professional manager, a chief administrative officer in charge. The local media supported the efforts to change the forms of government for both the city and the parish, and that cannot be underestimated. The media was all on board with consolidation, driven mostly by the Daily Advertiser, the editorial boards, but other media outlets as well. The Daily Advertiser wrote a number of editorials in support of consolidation. A lot of that was written by Jim Bradshaw, who was a senior editor at the Daily Advertiser, who worked alongside with Charlie Lennox. Rob Guidry was the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce at that time, and they were really a big proponent of consolidation as well. As Rob pointed out, the rural elected officials who felt threatened were opposed to it, and that was the case with some of the parish, some of the parish members prior to consolidation. They weren't all hunky-dory for it. And the vote passed 60.3% parish-wide, but the interesting numbers are 67% of the residents in the city voted for consolidation. Outside the city, that vote was less than half, right at 49%. So consolidation was driven by the city as opposed to the parish, which is directly contradictory to what a lot of people are led to believe or have heard. So one of the conclusions of the book was unified development and planning was a tremendous benefit, and that cannot be spoken of quite enough. That's one of the biggest benefits, in my opinion, of consolidation. Citizens and businesses benefit from consolidated government as going to one place to address concerns and questions. Like Kevin talked about as doing development across the country. He loved going into a community where he could deal with one group of people. He was talking about drainage, but in this case, it's one administration that deals with all the issues. Consolidation may not be the prescription that cures all the urban-rural dichotomy that plagued for so long by forcing the community to think and act as one. And this book, this article was written by Dr. Bacow, I think in 2003, huh, Jenny? Conclusion of the study. A couple of other things that have really been a tremendous benefit is the comprehensive drainage effort for having a consolidated government. Much like Kevin talked about, some counties have a parish-wide drainage board that links the municipalities and the parish or county governments. We have that right now with Consolidation. Another tremendous benefit of Consolidation is when Greg Gotro or Mandy Mitchell, now at LEADA, brings in a prospect from some other part of the country who's interested in maybe moving to Lafayette. They meet with one group, everybody's at the table, whether it be the city, the parish, the small towns, everybody's at the table, and LEADA does a tremendous job in getting that all together. Post-consolidation, in my opinion, has realized much more efficient government operations of employees and citizens. That was a comment from the book, and I certainly agree with this. Speaking to our state legislative delegation in Baton Rouge, as well as our congressional delegation with a unified voice, this is a phenomenal benefit of consolidation, and I'll have a couple of slides and words later on to talk about that. And Walter Como, the mayor parish president, talked in the book about we have been tremendously successful in obtaining state and federal projects due to that unified voice, and that has really, really ramped up a lot as recent as this most recent House Bill 2 in the Louisiana legislature. A little talk about sales taxes, where they were in '95, the year prior to consolidation, with the year-ending audits, and where they were at the end of the last fiscal year. In 1995, the parish sales taxes were generating right around $3.5 million a year. In the most recent year that ended, they went up to 6.3, or an 82% increase in parish sales taxes. This is a pretty tremendous increase when you look at all the annexations that have occurred, both by the city of Lafayette and our 5 smaller municipalities. The city of Lafayette sales tax has also benefited. It was $36 million in the year prior to consolidation, and this most recent year was right about $95 million, or a 158% increase in those, that 1961 and 1985, each 1-cent sales taxes. Annexation is something that needs to be looked at whenever you talk about a consolidated government. This is a map that shows all the annexations that have occurred by the different mayors and or parish presidents since '96. There was a total of, how many acres, Jenny? 30? 6,300 acres have been annexed by the city of Lafayette since consolidation. The Como administration had 38 ordinances, annexed about 1,369 acres for a total of 171 a year. Some of the most notable ones that Walter Como annexed was the Wetlands Golf Course, the I-10 Moss Street Corridor, and Sam's Club. The Durrell administration annexed 108 different parcels of property for a total of right at 4,400 acres, an average of 366 per year. Joey annexed, actually, the airport, which was totally unincorporated prior to the Durrell administration. He annexed that 735 acres into the city. He also annexed a Super Walmart and a couple of racetracks, which generate a lot of sales taxes in the city. Under Mayor President Robideau's administration, we annexed 41 total parcels, but a total of 505 acres. Under the Robideau administration, the lion's share of all of these were residential, as opposed to some of the previous ones that included a lot of commercial. Joel's were mostly residential, except for a little piece just south of I-10. And under Mayor President Guillory's administration, we've only annexed 7 parcels so far. This is a little out of date, but only by a month or so, for a total of 57 acres that we annexed since Mayor Guillory's been in office. Some of the benefits of consolidation are, obviously we have a $628 million budget. We have right at 2,300 employees. Lafayette's the 5th largest metropolitan area in Louisiana. We have 244,000 residents of the parish and 135,000 residents in the city, who all get to deal with one administration for their concerns and problems that may affect them, their neighbors, or their businesses. Another benefit of consolidation allows the government to deal with the retirement systems. There are 2 retirement systems that are in place for LCG employees. prior to consolidation, the city employees were in the municipal employees retirement system, which is called MERS, and the parish employees were in the parochial employees retirement system. The parochial employees retirement system is much, much larger. It not only deals with all the parishes in Louisiana, but it deals with other, like port commissions and LEDA and a bunch of other governmental or quasi-governmental jurisdictions or members of PERS. The employer rate is right now for MERS 29.5% of every salary dollar we pay to MERS for those people in the MERS system. Conversely, the parochial system is about to drop from 12.25 to 11.5 in January. So the difference is phenomenal in how much we pay into those retirement systems. Capital outlay funding, in my opinion, is probably the biggest benefit of all these slides. One of the biggest benefits of all these slides. In the most recent capital outlay session of the legislature in its most recent session, Lafayette Consolidated government received $55.7 million in state funding for projects in our parish. That's just a phenomenal amount. We've never received anywhere near that ever. This probably is more than we've got in the last many years combined. Some of those projects are, for the ones that were approved this past session, some of the highlights of them are the Cypress Island Swamp Bank, $4.45 million, that's in the parish, but will benefit the city and the people along the Vermilion River. The Hyman Park project, which Senator Boudreaux has put some more money in, is in the city, but will obviously benefit people in the parish, surrounding parishes as well. The parish government complex, we got $6.2 million, obviously in the city, but everybody in the parish uses it. Another big one was University Avenue corridor. We got $14 million for that project to match an $11 million bill grant that we received, and that project is rapidly under design and shall be bid next year. And the biggest one is the Bayou Vermilion flood control project, which is to acquire some property in the Milton area and other areas along the river to help with flooding for people in the parish as well as the city. It's going to be, actually will affect multiple parishes. But without a consolidated government, prior to that, the city would have their city council members talking to the delegation. The parish council members would have their people talking to the delegation, but the delegation did not get a unified voice like we get today with one administration. Next slide, Jenny. These are just some of the things from House Bill. This is House Bill 1. This is some other money that we got put into House Bill 1. These are for projects, for money that goes to DOTD for projects in Lafayette Parish, and they total about $12 million. We're in the process right now of some of these projects are doing a land swap with DOTD to actually take over these particular sections of roadway, and we will get the money and administer these ourselves, and which will be done a little quicker than DOTD because they have so many projects on the books. You can keep going, Jenny. I'll be happy to answer any questions y'all have. I know you may have a few, as y'all did for Kevin. As I said, I've been in the game for 45 plus years. I've seen prior to consolidation, I've seen the silos of city-parish government that did not, the mayor and the parish president did not communicate much. There was a little dialogue about the small towns. I've never seen the work that goes. Right now, Mayor Guillory meets with Karen Crow Scott, Dussault, and Youngsville on a monthly basis, and this has been tremendous for the people of our parish. To have such a unified voice, I personally think consolidation is working well. I think some great suggestions have come up in the previous thing that can make it work even better, and I'll be happy to entertain any questions. Tim was here in '96. He remembered how it started.
Thank you so much, Robert. Really appreciate that. I think we do have some questions or comments.
Okay. Thanks, Robert, for coming today, man.
Thanks,
yeah,
Tim.
Robert and I were the first consolidated group of directors to come into city-parish government, but I just want to touch base on what you said earlier. There were a lot of benefits of consolidation at the time, and I can only speak for my department, which I ran.
Right.
Our budget under, I think it was full length at the time, but it was like $1.9 million. And because of consolidation, I think when we left in 2004, we were at $21 million of federal funds coming into the parish, city and parish. There are a lot of benefits by keeping it consolidated. because of population, block grant money.
Everything.
Et cetera. Everything benefits by being consolidated. And let me tell you, it was an interesting time in '96 to see how it was going to work out as far as personalities work with each other. But we had really, it was a pretty smooth transition. I remember we had a couple, there's a couple of people that didn't agree with it, but for the most part, the government ran really efficient. And Kevin and I have been talking, on the break and that, I think the deconsolidation effort again, I mean, you've tried 3 times, you've beaten a dead horse. It's not going to happen. So I think what we need to do is come to some agreement with the intergovernment agreements and just spell everything out. It's going to take a lot of time to do it, but at least it'll be in writing. And I was telling Kevin earlier that once it's in writing, it can only be interpreted one way.
Right.
Once you set it up. So, made Josh laugh a while back. This was probably right before he ran. He came to me, he said, Tim, he goes, why don't you run for City-Parish president? And I said, man, are you crazy? I said, do you realize what you're about ready to get into? And I got to commend Josh. Josh has done a fantastic job for this parish and the city. And I think that whoever had gotten in, it was not going to be an easy job. And his heart's in the right way, right place, and he's got a lot of energy. So for that, just wanted to say that publicly because we got behind Josh and pushed Josh really hard to get in there, and I think he's doing a fantastic job. But deconsolidation on that point to me is just it's a dead horse.
And there was a lot of people who had concerns, as you well recall, when consolidation occurred because of the marriages, like the Brady Bunch. The man and the woman were bringing their kids who lived in separate houses before they got married, and all had to work together. And it was a little sketchy at first because, like in Public Works, for example, well, these are city people, or those are parish people. And as time went on and on and on, you got all new people, and now there's no more city versus parish. It took a number of years to get totally out of that, but it's been working rather well. One of the other things that was a tremendous benefit was the Public Works reorganization that was approved by the council, where we split Public Works into traffic, roads and bridges, drainage, and Public Works. We have 3 directors who are solely focused on that operation. They work with each other on a daily basis, and that's been one of the biggest things since Josh has been in office, as well as the consolidation of the merger of Parks and Recreation, Community Development, and Planning. That's been a tremendous benefit as well.
So, Robert, what I hear you saying, you spent, close to 20 minutes. Really, you were outlining not just the history of consolidation, but I wrote a list. What you said were the benefits of consolidation. So my question is consolidation working?
I think it's working, and I think it gets better every year. As every year we struggle to make it a better place. The council have had some dialogue about city funding going into the parish for Parks and Rec, particularly, was one of those things. And I think we worked out a lot of that. I think we can continue to work on it, but I think it's working very, very well.
Yeah. Thank you. Ms. Cook.
Thank you. Robert, I just kind of have some historical questions.
Sure.
Back all the way to the beginning when we decided to consolidate, why did the other municipalities decide they didn't want to opt in? What was their thinking?
Well, the original attempt at consolidation back in the 70s had all of those municipalities included. Now, that was actually before my time.
Okay.
But the municipalities just wanted no part of it, and I just don't think it was ever a consideration because it failed so miserably the first time. The small municipalities did not want any part of consolidation back in '92. They were way smaller than they are today, obviously, but they just didn't want to be a part of it. And that's where the Charter Commission, led by Ed Abel, said, we got to leave them out because if we bring them in, it's going to fail again. So Ed Abel and the Charter Commission decided. They went back and forth, but the small towns were very, had a very loud voice in not wanting to be a part of the government. They still get to vote for the mayor president and the parish president, obviously, because they all pay parish-wide millages. But,
Right.
they didn't want to be a part of it. They wanted to keep their own autonomy.
Wanted their own autonomy, yeah. Okay.
And in my opinion, they will never want to be a part of it. I don't think that's ever, I don't think that
That
ship
was not going to change now.
I
no,
don't think
for
that'll
sure.
ever happen.
And then the other thing, the annexation component that you were talking about, Lafayette really has been kind of behind as far as annexations compared to the other municipalities. I know and it continues to go down with each administration. Not that it's the administration's problem, but just I guess, you wouldn't have numbers in terms of what the other municipalities, how much they have annexed.
I don't have that. I've asked for that. We have all this stuff. Charlie Mayor with Mary Sliman's office tracks all of our stuff. I don't have all of their stuff. But, I mean, annexations is something that I think this commission needs to look at, because as municipalities in the parish continue to annex the parish tax base, while the sales taxes have not been that bad, especially the last year and a half, will continue to erode and cause a problem. Annexation is something that I think needs to be addressed, and y'all need to take a look at.
And that's what, if I could ask, if you could get me those numbers for the other municipalities, so we can all
absolutely.
have a kind of an idea of what's actually happening, compared to what's happening in Lafayette, because, yeah, that does concern me, just the fact that we, as the city of Lafayette, we have lost our numbers. I mean, we keep shrinking in terms of the total picture of the parish, and so, I'd just be curious as to see what the rate of annexation is outside of the city of
Yeah,
Lafayette.
we can certainly get that. And, the annexations, if municipalities such as Youngsville, for example, they've grown exponentially, but the vast majority of their annexations are residential. So that helps the parish, because they're not losing any sales taxes. They're continuing to collect their property taxes. They don't have to maintain the roads, bridges, and drainage in those annexed areas. Conversely, some of the other municipalities annex a bunch of commercial, like during Charlie Longlinay's term in Broussard, he annexed, his sales taxes shot through the roof because he annexed so much commercial.
Exactly.
Annexations of residentials by the municipalities is a good thing for the parish, but the commercial stuff is something that makes them look at. In 1990, Walter Como, put an item on the ballot that was tremendously opposed by the city of Lafayette. We created, quote unquote, a taxing district outside the corporate limits of the city. And right now, the parish has a 1 cent tax, as you know, and the city has 2 cent tax. Had that went before the voters, and what that would have done is, if that had passed and it failed 54 to 46, the parish would have kept its 1 cent on all annexations, and the city would have got one of their 2 cents on annexations. Had that occurred, the parish sales taxes would be 20 million today instead of 5. I have to think.
Let me ask you.
It was a little confusing to the voters, and it actually came closer than a lot of people would have thought at 54-46.
You brought something up about Charlie Longlinay with the city of Broussard. When he did his aggressive annexations and became really a lot of commercial annexations.
Oh, absolutely.
Was the mayor president involved in that as well, or was that just Charlie Longlinay going after that?
That was just Charlie. That was just Charlie and his council being aggressive in annexations. Like, I can remember a meeting we had with Charlie way back when we were talking about building the Albertsons Parkway. And, LCG moves a little slower than some other governments, particularly Charlie Longlinay, at least at that time.
Yeah.
And Charlie said, I'm going to have this thing under control. I'm going to have this road built in a year and a half. And we said, Charlie, it can't happen. You don't even have the rights of way yet. It's not designed. You have no permits. But he built that road in a year and a half. He got it open, and of course the sales taxes just shot through the roof as it developed. But he was very aggressive in annexation. Had a council that supported him as well, obviously, to do all that.
And I guess that's kind of to my, I guess in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, Charlie focused only on Broussard, getting that done. And I'm back to maybe having just a mayor of Lafayette focusing just on Lafayette, being aggressive like Charlie was and getting those things done. And I agree with Tim. I have nothing, our mayor has been very aggressive. I sing his praises about the drainage initiatives he's doing right now, because he's doing an awesome job with all that stuff. So again, this is just looking at maybe past municipalities and how they opted out, but they are, and I'm not talking deconsolidation. I'm still agree with you.
Yeah.
The consolidation component we have right now, but I think there are ways to tweak it.
Right.
And to me, one of them would be to have a particular component where there's a mayor of the city of Lafayette and a parish person as well overseeing the whole picture. So that's what Charlie did, I guess, makes me think that it's something that maybe we, the city of Lafayette, want to have a little more, in just that particular focus kind of thing. But anyway, if we could get those annexation numbers, and Robert, if you don't mind sending us this presentation, maybe send it to V and she can
Absolutely.
get it.
I thought we actually was tweaking it as late as 7:30 this
Okay.
morning, so.
Perfect.
Jenny will send it to everybody.
All right, thank you,
and
Jenny.
today.
All right, thank you.
Robert, I'd love to hear your opinion in regards to the whole idea of Lafayette having its own mayor versus, and the parish having its own parish manager. The argument I've heard is that by virtue of the way that the charter is written now, that you're creating an internal conflict inside of a leader because he has to choose between which he's going to benefit. But according to what I heard you say, it has the opposite effect. If I have one administration and I'm dealing with one consolidated group versus other, I got one guy that's got a vision that's thinking regional versus local, that we have leveraged with Baton Rouge, we've leveraged with Washington in terms of benefit of us benefiting financially, not just economic growth personally, business, but what we actually get out of Baton Rouge. That's what I heard you say. What's your opinion on that? What's your thought?
The amount of money we've gotten out of Baton Rouge in the last year and what our requests for the upcoming budget for capital outlay is even way more substantial than last year. It's just, it doesn't work, in my opinion, if you have two administrations. Actually, you have 7, because all the small towns are asking for capital outlay money as well, and the university and everybody else, LEDA and everybody else. But I think in speaking with, with our legislative delegation, and the mayor speaks with legislators every single Friday of the year. He calls legislators to get a pulse on what's going on. And I just think that unified voice of having one mayor president talk to our legislative delegation as well as our congressional delegation just speaks volumes. They like having, instead of having 2 different people saying, oh, I want this, I want that, they have one. Two councils, but one mayor president.
How many administrations have you served, Robert?
Well, probably from 75, probably 10, 11. Probably 10 or 11.
I feel like, yes, ma'am. I feel like a little boy. Like since 7, 10.
But that includes the Blanco and Jindal administrations. That's 12 years of that 46.
So I'm talking locally here, right? So in the administrations that you worked here under Consolidation, did you personally witness the conflict of the mayor president having to choose or pick? Or?
No, as Tim indicated, we really thought there was going to be a lot more conflict when we brought the Brady Bunch together, but it worked out very, very smoothly. And Walter was a very level-headed parish president. He was, kumbaya, bring the troops together. The council got along well, and it worked way faster than we thought it would.
Thank you. Nan, yes, let me find you.
I just kind of wanted to respond to that conflict about creating more of a conflict with maybe having a mayor. I guess if there's a situation where the mayor president is out recruiting or, working with LEDA to recruit a business to come, and let's say the business decides between, let's take Amazon, between Karen Crow or maybe possibly in Lafayette, that kind of is a conflict that he has to resolve of where maybe the best place it goes. But again, if that person was a person from just Lafayette, maybe he would, figure out how to get Amazon to, and I'm just using that as an example, it's great where it is, but he would maybe have to use a different set of tools to get that to come to his own municipality. So I just think the loyalty might be a little bit more to one. It's hard to wear 2 hats. I mean, he's wearing hats, because so when he goes to the legislature to ask for money, is he asking for money for Lafayette? Yes. He's asking for money probably for Broussard.
Absolutely.
For young, so he's asking for everybody. So when you're saying it's one voice, but then also Ray Bork may be going to the legislator and asking for Broussard as well. So if Broussard maybe gets double representation. Right. And so what happens to Lafayette?
They kind of do, like the Amazon's a good example. Amazon obviously needed a giant footprint for that to happen. Josh's mantra in his campaign pledge was one parish, one future. If Amazon came in Lafayette Parish, I don't care if it went in Karen Crow, if it went in Youngsville, if it went in the middle of Lafayette, or unincorporated area, it's good for the parish. And the parish as a whole, in my opinion, you can't have a parochial attitude on everything. You sometimes need to look for the good of the entire parish, and that's what I think Consolidation affords us.
No, agreed. That's a good point. Amazon's huge. I mean, that's going to benefit the whole parish. I'm not suggesting that needs to be in Lafayette and only can, help Lafayette. But I guess just when you talk about the representation, in Baton Rouge, Lafayette's getting represented by the mayor president. he's also representing Lafayette, Broussard, Youngsville, Scott, and they're also there representing themselves. So in some respect, you know, we kind of get, and I don't want to say shortchanged because I know he's working hard up there, but we are not, we're not double represented like the parish, you know, like Broussard, Youngsville, Scott might be. So I guess to that point, I think if we had that one person, you know, again, for Lafayette like they have,
Yeah.
then we could get, you know, I'm not saying we're going to get more money, but we still maybe would get, you know, we would have another voice as well. So that's all. That's my point. I'm going to stop.
That's it. Yes, Will?
Yeah, I'm having the exact same thoughts that Nanette's having. If consolidation leads to getting more money out of Baton Rouge, wouldn't we have 20-plus years worth of history of getting lots of money out of Baton Rouge, and not just the last year? You talked a lot about last year we got, and I agree with you, we got tons of money last year, but do we have 20 years of history getting lots of money out of Baton Rouge because of consolidation?
I didn't do the 20-year research, but you can go to the legislative website and look at the House Bill 2 over the last 25, 30 years and see what those numbers are. We probably got more in the last year than in many, many years before that combined.
And then, and kind of also to what Nanette was saying, if the consolidation leads to more money out of Baton Rouge, wouldn't Broussard, Youngsville, Scott be shedding their mayors quickly and marrying our parish like the city of Lafayette's done, because it's so, you're going to get so much money out of the state? Like, I'm not connecting the dots here. Like, I think Nanette's right. I think all that happened was the city of Lafayette lost its cheerleader, it lost its champion in favor of a champion that argues in favor of everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly your opinion. You're entitled to it. I don't necessarily agree.
It's not only Baton Rouge, though. It's the federal funds that we get, too, by being consolidated, not just Baton Rouge.
Is there federal funds as well that lead, because we're consolidated, we get more federal funds?
Hold on a second, Tim.
I'm sorry, I didn't talk about it.
Go ahead. You're responding, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, there's, you know, because of consolidations, the monies I was talking about, when we consolidated, were federal dollars.
Right.
They're community development block grants. They had, we had water grants that got water, that pumped water from Lafayette to Indian Bayou Community. That's just two that I can think of right off the bat, but there was a big benefit by that. And, you know, and also another thing that we don't realize is that it takes, Kevin and I were talking, it takes building these relationships with our congressional districts and our leaders, our state senators, just the United States senators. You got to get somebody out there working it. You can't, they're not going to come to you. You've got to go out there and fight for it and grab it. And that's what we did. We were very aggressive when we got in, and we got a lot of funding, roads. Matter of fact, Rob and I worked on a bunch of road projects, grants together through the Community Development Block Grant. So definitely a lot of federal dollars that came in.
Okay.
Not on top of the state, just FYI.
And I'm glad, thank you for that. I'm glad to hear that. The question that I had was, in our prior speaker, Kevin Blanchard, talked about this, is that other counties and cities throughout the United States of America, consolidation really works well when the city is such an overwhelming majority of the county. So they don't really sacrifice any political autonomy. When we consolidated in 1996, and this is in the Protect the City Committee, Nanette, you're asking for some numbers. I have the Protect the City Committee report opened up. They have some numbers in here. When we consolidated in 96, the city population was 63% of the total parish population. And now we're at 50%. I mean, barely, like not even a percent over 50. Like,
I think it's 52 years. That's right at 50.
it's
I think you're
50%.
right.
So so maybe when the voters, then this goes to the point, when the voters voted, the city voted so in favor of consolidation, maybe it was because they weren't concerned about sacrificing political autonomy. Hey, we're 63% of the total parish, we'll be fine. We can vote, you know, for people, for council members and mayor presidents that we like. But since the city population is now 50%, it's no longer the same story. If this was brought up to the voters again, the city might not vote in favor of consolidation like they did in 96. Do you have an opinion on that?
I don't know if that would necessarily make a change. I think the reason the city voters voted for it is because the Chamber of Commerce and the media and everybody else was driving the train. And I think that's why the vote in the city was so high, because, you know, Rob Guidry and Ed Abel and all those people were saying consolidation is a great thing. It's going to save some money. And it did save some money, not as much as a lot of people had indicated, because originally they had thought that when we do the merger of the Brady Bunch, all the people from this side will no longer work and we won't need them. But we obviously kept all those employees, got rid of some through attrition. But for the most part, it just made everything work smoother. It didn't save a whole lot of money, but in my opinion, it made everything work much better.
It didn't save money? Consolidation didn't save money?
I don't think it saved as much of money as was originally pitched, because the original thing, they were talking about saving 3.5 million, because like, you have so many people in finance and public parish, so many people in drainage, so many here and so many there. But all those people kept their jobs, so they didn't eliminate them all right out the chute.
Right. Okay.
Goodwill?
I'm up.
Right.
I want to respectfully disagree on the representation by the mayor president. Each mayor is represented, like you said, but the mayor also represents everyone in the parish. So he's representing the mayor as a mayor and so you have two representatives. He's one person, but he's still representing two people. And I know it sounds odd, but he's still represented. I think he's looking out for the best, as you said, for the parish. And again, all those decisions have a lot to do with the company that's seeking. They're looking for certain areas and certain things that they need to, and I was assuming that's what he's helping to facilitate. Robert, a question I have for you on the grants. Before we consolidated, the parish had to work for their own grants and the city worked for their grants.
The parish's grants, the parish hardly got any grants. There weren't very many grants. We didn't really have a big grants department, as Tim had alluded. But once we consolidated, the city grants, a large part, and he knows more about CDBG grants than I are, based on population. And when we consolidation, the population went from this to this, which it dramatically rose up the amount of money we get.
So it's fair to say, if we would have a parish and a mayor, a parish president and a mayor separate, it would be probably harder for both to get that amount of money that we're getting now in grant money because of the.
I think it would be more difficult. We'd certainly have to bifurcate it. The parish would have to have their own grants department. We had maybe one person way back when that did a little bit, but not that much. But the parish would need to have a grants department to apply for their own. And the CDBG grants, you just bifurcate it. The city would be based on this, and the parish would be based on everything outside. Is how I think it would work.
Being consolidated, we get better representation, and it's like we said, it's a better.
Yeah, and Hollis could articulate that as well as anybody, just how, how our federal grants are now based on population and how much we're bringing in.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Listen, I think there's no doubt consolidation is where we need to stay. The $1 million question is, and what I would like to focus on to get to the bottom line is, I think we can work intergovernmental agreements out. I think we can get the city mayor. I think we can do all these things. I'm going to revert back to, what does it look like if we stay consolidated, and the city does have its own mayor, but the CAO stays the same, all your grant writing people stays the same, all of the employees are protected, everybody stays the same. The parish wouldn't have to participate in the current salary that's going on, and you have a parish representative, you're still under consolidation, they both still on paper have the same amount of population as you have today. A parish representative or whatever would have the same secretary, same CAO. When it comes down to a parish issue, a parish function, then they would weigh in on it. You stay consolidated, so the employees are protected, departments are protected. You have the department heads report to the mayor of Lafayette when it's a city function. You have them report to the parish president or parish representative, whatever you want to call it, when it's a parish deal. And the only way you can get rid of that department head would be, at that point, you would have to have the mayor and the parish president agree on making a change. They could, not one could outweigh the other when it comes to department heads, and you don't create a whole new administration, you don't create a whole new staff. You have a council clerk right here that handles both staffs right now. I'm just throwing it out there because I'm going to tell you, at the end of the day, we can talk consolidation. The argument and the push is coming from, we want our own mayor. Can you still get the same block money? Can we still be consolidated on paper? Still numbers are the same? What does that look like? And I think that's what I want to find out. What does it look like when you do that? Because I think that's the, you know, I'm not in favor of blowing it up and saying, oh, well, you got to have a whole new grant writing staff. What does it look like if you know, I think if you do that, you know, it basically, I'm trying to find a way to stay consolidated, but everybody get their fair share. You want your own attorney, you want to pay for it, I'm good with that. Parish, we might not have a problem, we might not need to hire another attorney. I mean, I hear exactly what you're saying. I think Josh has done a great job. I'm not advocating to replace administration and people lose jobs, but if we just can say, well, let's just stay consolidated and do the intergovernmental agreements, somebody's going to say, well, thank you for doing the intergovernmental agreements. It's more clear. Now we have no allocation. Now we have a parish budget and a city of Lafayette budget, but there's somebody still going to complain and still going to drive the sword that I want my own mayor.
So you asked the question, Kevin, right? What does it look like, right? It looks like another form of deconsolidation to me. When you say, I now got a parish president, now I got a mayor, it's just another way to say we're deconsolidated. That's what I see. And I'm not an attorney.
Right.
But when you start looking at pensions, et cetera, what's it cost? You don't think an attorney's going to say, no, you're not really consolidated?
But what,
The parish got its own elected official. The mayor's got its own elected official. I think it's very complicated. That's what I see.
right. Well, I mean, if we could definitely make anything complicated. All I'm trying to say is, you don't mess with any, what does it look like if you don't mess with any of the, I'm not saying that you change retirement, you change any function of this government. I'm saying basically just like we have a city council and a parish council, nothing changes. You keep everybody the same. Guess what? The city has an issue. They gotta vote out whoever's their city representative. Somebody has a parish issue. They don't like the way the parish is handling the jail, the library. They don't like the way it's handling the roads and bridges or what's going on in the parish. I'm saying, what does it look like if you add two positions but stay consolidated? Don't change anything. Don't worry about every function of retirement stays the same. You're basically saying the city of Lafayette has to fund their own representative. It's like another council seat, right? Like a at-large position, right? I'm not saying I'm in favor. I'm just saying we can do all of the IGAs to make us line up correctly. And I understand, Bobby, what you're saying. When you now elect a mayor only and a parish representative only, it's like you drawing lines in the sand and you deconsolidating. I'm not saying that you blow everything. I don't think you got to blow anything up. I'm just saying, what does it look like on paper? Does the charter say you can do it? Does the attorney say you can do it? Do we put it to a poll and say everything stays the same? We're just going to get your own mayor and going to line up intergovernmental agreements and try to make it more efficient as far as for where's the money going and who's in charge of it. But again, nothing's going to be perfect because then the next argument is going to be, well, then how does Chattanooga work equally and get projects done if he has to report to a mayor of Lafayette and then he has to report to a parish guy? My opinion is whoever your director is got the best interest of the parish as a whole because he is still a consolidated employee. He's just focusing on both projects like he does now. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not here to throw a monkey in the wrench, but I've been here long enough to tell you that the city is banging the door for their own mayor and their own representation, and I feel that, yeah, they probably need that, but at the same time, I don't want to lose state funding. I don't want to lose federal funding either, you know. So I mean, it's a fine line, give and take. You don't do anything, then somebody's going to come and blow up the whole thing, and we're going to be right back to deconsolidation. So there's going to have to be a bend in the break is what I'm getting. Somebody's going to have to lean over and say, we're not going to lose consolidation because we want to stay consolidated. We just want to have somebody elected just to handle city issues, and we want to have a parish guy to handle all the issues. and keep all the departments the same, keep one CEO, one CFO, one accounting, everything is the same, and fix the budget line items currently in the current council. I don't know what that looks like. I'm just saying, you can look at it as a form of deconsolidation, but the only way you get to deconsolidation is if you blow it all up. I'm just wondering, has there been any parish that has done that and said, look, we benefit from, we all can agree we benefit from staying consolidated. You know, we all can agree that maybe the city is ready to have their own elected police chief. That's an easy fix. I mean, we're going to keep kicking this can down the road, is what's going to happen. And somebody's going to get fed up, and then somebody's going to file a lawsuit, or somebody's going to say, you know what, I got enough votes to override everything, and we're just going to go for deconsolidation. You know, I believe in working together, and you know, I have nothing but respect for Mayor President Josh Gilroy. I think he's done a great job, and if he decides, if it goes down the road that he wants to run, there's no way to say it other than the fact that we have not talked about that. We have not said, can you elect just one person to handle this and one person to handle that, but keep all the employees the same. Robert don't lose his job. Lori doesn't lose her job. You don't create a whole new Parks and Rec department. You don't create a whole new roads and drainage department. I think at the end of the day, the outcry is that they just want to be able to blame one person for the whole city's fault. They want to be able to go and change the mayor. No, I don't like the way the mayor believes in this, I'm going to vote him out. Well, you have the right now. Right now, they feel like they don't have the representation. I think overall, personally, we have the right representation, okay? I think we have one person that handles all of that. I'm just saying, I know what the argument is. I know what the hot button is. I'm just trying to prevent us from deconsolidating. That's all I'm trying to do. But try to figure out ways to be creative and let everybody participate. That's it.
Okay, Rob, I just want to touch base on what you talked about earlier about the benefits of consolidation. You said it wasn't as much as we anticipated.
Right.
But we can't look at it from that point. We got to look at what happened after consolidation of the increased population, the increased funding federally and state.
Oh, absolutely.
That was a huge amount of money that came into this area. Our roads projects took off. We built Canaan Recovery Center for treatment programs. There was a lot of things that we got right after consolidation. So the net effect of consolidation benefiting is great. I mean, it's phenomenal. So we saved $3 million in the beginning. It's the millions that we got after we got in because of based on population increase.
And when I was trying to articulate it, maybe it didn't come across correctly, but the original thing, it's going to save this much on the salaries, which it didn't.
Right.
But the other benefits outweighed that by 50.
Oh,
if not more.
And we were both here for that. You saw the monies coming in.
Yes.
Yeah, it was amazing. Thank you.
All right, to speak to Kevin's comments, I'm that city person that is asking for a mayor of Lafayette, and I guess the main rub that I see is the fact that someone outside of the city of Lafayette gets to vote for the person in the current arrangement we have now, that person who's going to run the city of Lafayette. Like people in Broussard, Scott Youngsville.
Right.
And, you know, lucky for them, they're voting for a mayor president, but they're also voting for the mayor of Lafayette. So I guess to your point, Kevin, I think, you know, we can do what you're saying. I believe we can do what you're saying. We'll still be consolidated, but we put that component where there's a person who is in charge of the city of Lafayette voted by people in the city of Lafayette, not by someone in another municipality. And that person runs the city. And then we have the mayor, the parish advisor, parish administrator, parish president, whatever you want to call them, and that person is voted by the entire parish. To me, that's representation as it should be. And that person, you know, when we split the departments or we look at the departments, like we know, for instance, the park department, that is a city department, and we've managed to get that through the last 2 years of budget. And so that would be under that person. We know that the police and fire, the city of Lafayette, sheriff would be parish. I mean, there's some lines that are already fairly clear. And then there's the public works department, which would be a parish department, and through IGAs, just like the Youngsville, Broussard, Scott do when they want something done in the parish, they do an IGA with the parish drainage department and basically get those things done. So again, there's ways to do it. Employees would have to be determined who's, again, we'll have to look at all the city employees, the parish employees, and figure out how that works. But I feel like that's part of the job of what we should be doing. We're not going to be deconsolidating, but let's look at what options we have in terms of doing a functional consolidation with a mayor of Lafayette, because that's what people are asking for, and see how that fits. We may come to find out, okay, it may not work, it may not fit, but I think that's one of our jobs that we need to look at and find out what, if we had a parish administrator, because to me, the main rub for me is that I have a person who is running the city of Lafayette, and that person is not only voted by the city residents, but they're voted by the municipalities, other municipalities. I don't get to vote on Broussard's mayor. I don't get to vote on Youngsville mayor. That's their thing. So the city of Lafayette should have that as their own, that these people from the city of Lafayette are voting for the person that's going to govern us. And so
I just have a difference of opinion. I mean, I think what's good for the city is good for the parish. For example, Mr. Tabor's a parish council member. He's not going to totally ignore the residents in his district that live in the city, because he needs them to vote for him to get reelected. Same thing with the mayor president. He can't ignore the people in the city or just represent the parish, because he needs everybody to get
And I'm not
reelected.
suggesting he's ignoring them. I'm just talking about, if you want to talk constitutional,
Right.
you might say a person in the city of Lafayette could say, well, it's unconstitutional why someone from another parish, other municipalities should be able to vote for who governs my city, because, okay, can I go vote for Broussard's mayor? No. So I think that's to me, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody's doing a bad job or that we're not representing or we can't represent all, but it's just that little piece of the puzzle that I can't live with in terms of why, the city of Lafayette can't have their own mayor to where just city residents vote for that person. And again, we may have a difference of opinion on that.
Yeah, and one option would be a charter amendment that required the mayor to be from the corporate limits of the city of Lafayette. That's a doable deal. Then you get a mayor who lives in the city, might not resolve all your other concerns, but that would be something.
I think that would be a step in
Like,
terms
it was kind of surprising when Walter, who lived way outside the city, just actually south of Broussard, became parish president. I don't think we'll ever see a mayor in Lafayette outside the corporate limits again. I just don't see it. I just don't see it happening. But a charter amendment could require that the mayor reside within the city of Lafayette.
yeah, because given the population the way it's going,
That's
like I
right.
said, this
Like
could
Will
happen.
said, it's 52-48, I think,
50.2%,
pretty
yeah.
close to that.
Yeah, so we could have someone outside the city, which, not to say that they couldn't do the job, I'm not suggesting that, but I think just as far as better representation, that person that's governing the city of Lafayette should be, living in the city.
Right.
And no one from another municipality should be able to vote for that person, though. That's the other part of that puzzle, that just by saying he has to live in the city, that doesn't fix that part. We still get people from Broussard deciding who's going to be the mayor of Lafayette.
Absolutely.
So that's still my,
And that's what the media and the chamber and everybody thought was the best when consolidation got pushed.
and I disagree with him. I don't think it's the best.
How did you vote in 95? 92?
I don't remember. I don't know what I had for breakfast. I don't remember.
Yeah, I didn't mean to kick that can. I was just throwing out there. Look, the other thing too, the unincorporated area probably feels the same way too, if you think about it, who represents them?
I'm just not sure, Kevin, if a mayor and a parish president, even though you keep everything functionally consolidation, would work, because you talk about so-and-so, whether the CAO or Laurie or Chad or Warren don't lose their jobs, you got two people deciding who gets that job. How does that work?
No, I just threw it out there so the media can write and we can figure out, somebody maybe can watch it. Look, I currently understand what the city wants, but also understand how we do benefit by having one. The unincorporated area and the municipalities, if it was a parish elected official, then some would argue, well, maybe the city of Lafayette shouldn't be voting on who's our parish representative because they have their own mayor. Why should the city vote on who's going to represent the municipalities and the unincorporated areas, right? Exactly. Well, you can't have both arguments. You can't have both ways.
Yeah, both ways.
You can't. Well, we're part of the city too. We all have our own. We all share the same courthouse. We all share the same jail. Where's that located? I'm sorry. Where's that located at? City of Lafayette. Okay. It's still. It's not. We can move the jail anywhere. We can move the courthouse. It's not a parish mandate to have it in there. I'm just saying. if you're gonna bend, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Or what I'm saying is the unincorporated area and the municipalities have taken your 63% and brought it down to 52. When, back in the day, when you said they consolidated, the city voted for it because they were 63% of the population, you're at 52 right now. How did that happen? Municipalities got their own thing, they started going, boom, annexations. But during that process, the city of Lafayette also annexed. So let's not get sidetracked. All I'm trying to say is, if the city wants its own mayor and you want to vote on your own mayor, then I don't think the city should vote on who's representing the parish. I don't care if you got 2 tax bills, because the unincorporated area and the municipalities are representing the outlining area of the parish. You know, so it's, what I'm hearing is, I want to vote on the city mayor and I want to vote on the parish president. But right now, you can vote on a city council member and a parish council member, all right? So when you look at it from a big picture is, what I threw out there was, I said elect one position, one position. Now we're talking, well, what department goes here? Well, how are you going to do the, see, that's what I was trying to get at. I suggest maybe giving one and one, and then now we want to look at, well, what about the retirement system? And well, how's this one going to report to this one? You see? It could be cut and dry, or we can knot it up and we can fight for what we want, and I want my own this and I want my own that. But then it goes back to what Bobby said. Now you sound like you want deconsolidation. Well, that's where it gets tricky for me. I want to help, but then you help on one end, but then I want this, and now we're all in one. You know, it's that give and take that we have to come to agreement on. You can't say I want this, but then I don't want to have this department. I don't want to have this employee with this. We should separate who does what. Well, when you're going to start separating and start dividing, then you just basically went down the road of deconsolidation. That's all I'm saying.
You're not separating departments.
Wait, let me get you on, Nan. Where you at?
Yeah, you can cut my mic off.
I'm not talking about separating departments. You leave departments intact, the ones that are consolidated, the ones that are more, you know, like I said, Parks and Rec is separate. I mean, that's a city millage. So you find the clear lines where they're separate, and then the ones that are like parish, like Public Works.
Right, you can do that in a government agreement.
Right, exactly.
But so where I think
we're talking apples. I mean, I'm talking consolidation still, with a mayor component. That's all. And I don't think, you know, when you talk about like the unincorporated area, do they pay city taxes?
they don't pay city property taxes.
Okay, right.
Let's make that clear.
They pay
We do
city
pay
taxes
taxes.
when you come into
We
the
don't pay
city,
the
yes,
property
but you don't pay
taxes.
the property tax.
Yeah.
But they vote on the mayor president, who is also in charge of the city of Lafayette.
Because they're in a marriage, they have no other choice.
Right, right. I'm just
Right.
saying, so in terms of, you know, representation of who gets to vote for that person that's going to run Lafayette, we have a lot of votes that are coming outside of Lafayette that have skin in the game, yes, because they come to Lafayette and pay sales taxes. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of Broussard and Youngsville, the other municipalities, who votes for their mayor?
The ones that live in the city.
Right, and who else? That's it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess that's just what I'm looking to see happen for Lafayette, so that they have a, you know, I mean, a vote that's coming from the people that are actually paying sales taxes, paying property taxes in the city, and have that, they should have that voice, just the
Right.
city of Lafayette.
And if we make a charter amendment, to his point, of the mayor of Lafayette has to only be elected by, what? The city of Lafayette?
Be resident.
What happens to a guy in an unincorporated area? He never gets to run for anything?
I mean, he chose to live in the
Oh,
Yeah, so,
I mean, but again,
run for a parish, something, yes.
he could wear for parish council.
Yeah, he could, I mean, he lives in the parish, but he
Right.
doesn't live
But
in the
doesn't have a
city.
shot at any other higher part, is all I'm saying.
He could be in administration, but he doesn't
He
live in
can't
the
run
city.
for administration, just to get
Well, I
elected.
mean, I would say he could work in, but he could be involved with administration, with LCG, but as far as running for a position that's in a city of Lafayette that he does
Right.
not live in, then, yeah, I mean, I
all good.
can't run for a district that I don't live in. I mean, that's,
Right.
how all of us have that same restriction. So that's not something new.
If it's possible, let me push this on a little bit.
Yeah.
And, well, yeah. You know, my hope, you know, I definitely want us to go through the history. I'm looking at the issue. It just, again, it seems like we're kind of entering the area when we're talking about what we're talking about now. It's a political, philosophical debate, right? I'm interested, Robert, everybody, right? Like, what even brought us to this place? Again, I appreciate Kevin's presentation a little bit earlier, because when we talk functional, what are the issues? How can I think consolidation has worked well, according to what Robert has presented. I know my experience has been that. But how do we solve the issue? Like, what's impeding the smooth collaboration, right? So if we can just move a little bit further. Where I'm at, exit, who I had? Will?
Okay, we just had a lot of conversations that I need to say something about. First thing about the sales tax. I mean, Kevin, sales tax. I go to Scott and I buy things in Scott. Do I get to vote for the mayor of Scott? Why does that argument flow to the city of Lafayette that
Because
people?
the parish is tied to the city. We're married, equal. You're not married to the city of Scott. Parish is not married to the city of Scott.
So
You get it?
then
That's
let's
where
have,
I'm
then
coming
let's
from.
have, like Kevin was saying, then let's have functional consolidation where we're not having this, this misaligned political voting.
Perfect, so I got a solution. Fix it with IGAs.
Right.
Get your own attorney.
Right. And I agree with that, but then you started saying the city of Lafayette would not vote for the parish president.
No, I was just saying that could be what the unincorporated area and other people feel like. I didn't say that's what you should do.
Okay.
I'm just saying one of the possible arguments could come from them and say, well, since you don't want me voting on your mayor, right? But we're married, but how am I going to get a vote in my parish president if we don't have a spot created? That's all I was saying.
The unincorporated person would have a vote for the parish president.
If you had that, right. I'm saying that's the reason they get to vote on your mayor is because we're married. You're consolidated.
Let me try.
No, I'm just trying to clarify. In other words, you are joined at the hip. The parish and the city is joined at the hip. You know, and I hear what you're saying is, well, man, why do people in the unincorporated area and the municipalities get to vote on my mayor?
Right.
It's because the title mayor president represents all parties, right? It represents the city of Lafayette, represents the unincorporated, and represents that's just a function we're in.
That's the criticism of that's what's unfair.
I got you. But that's, I think, if we want to fix the function of government and have the city vote on city issues, city deal with city money, those things can be fixed in its current format. Getting your own city attorney can be fixed, right? So if we fix all of that, I guess the question is, that's not good enough. Because if we want to fix functionality and we want to fix financing and have the city vote on city issues and city projects, and IGAs, that can all be done without having to elect a separate mayor and a separate parish president. That can all be done right now. So is the real push just to get the mayor? Because you can fix every function, everything else you could fix without having to deconsolidate.
Right, and to your point, if you're trying to save us from deconsolidation, if you said earlier, we're gonna get to this point, people are gonna get so mad and they're just gonna deconsolidate outside the councils.
Right. Well, do you think they're going to deconsolidate because they don't get their own mayor? 'Cause
Right.
If you can get your own attorney.
Right.
And you can fix all your finances and you can vote on only your city issues, right? And the parish can vote only on its parish money and parish issues, then you fixed everything you wanted politically and autonomy.
Yeah.
So the missing part is the bottom line is you want your own mayor.
That has to be part of it.
I think that's two parts. I think you fix the function of the government and the way the city can vote so that thing doesn't come up again where we're a joint meeting, right? And the city has 52% of the money in it. Why is the parish joined at the hip? Why we're making, you could fix all of those issues, and then you have a parish president that can both be elected by both a city and an unincorporated area guy, or a guy that lives in another municipality. So you're consolidated, you're fixing all the legal stuff, and you stopping the disputes, right? You're fixing all of those fights, and you're allowing the city council to vote on city issues, city money. Then the next piece of the puzzle is, that's what I was getting at. How does it look like if you really want your own mayor? Then that's a whole different discussion.
I think it might be a good idea. I think that there are some legal questions here about this entire conversation. And there's going to be some repercussion to all of that. And I think, it's definitely above my pay grade status. So maybe we can entertain trying to, in a meeting, finding someone.
If there's things that
will
we
give us
can
the opinion
fix without, in other words, let's not throw the baby out. If we can fix things that help the city function better financially and make better decisions, I think that's where we need to go first. And then if you can fix that, then I think the second discussion is, what does that look like from a legal standpoint, a function standpoint, and what does it do to departments if you had that? It's a twofold, I think.
The most important thing here, more important than budgets, tax dollars, everything, is democracy. Is that everyone has the right to vote for a representative that works for them, and if they don't like them, they can vote them out. Just democracy. I think everyone in this room would agree democracy is more important than anything else. Budgets, tax dollars, anything. The city residents of Lafayette voting for a city mayor that they hold accountable, that they can't be overwritten by other people also joining in on that vote, is so critical, is more important than roads, bridges, and drainage. It's more important than parks and rec. That has to be the center of our attention.
I agree. I understand. I'm nothing to rebuttal there. I understand exactly where you're getting at. If that happens, we're still fighting disputes, right? So a different administration gets in. If we don't fix the intergovernmental agreements and fix the other stuff first, you could have your own mayor, and that mayor, Lafayette, is still going to be stuck with a charter and still going to be stuck with a city council and cannot do certain things.
There's going to always be disputes, though.
You know?
That's going to be, that's government.
Oh, look,
Oh, sorry. You done, Will?
Yes.
You good? All right.
I just have one real simple question. What have we missed out on? Is there any instance of something that was never, we weren't represented, or where the mayor, as mayor president or as our mayor, that he didn't, that was in any instance, I mean, going back to Walter Como, but Amazon, there was no place in the city of Lafayette to put Amazon. It's not going to happen.
Geographically.
So, and I'm just curious of what we missed out on, and I don't see, again, in 2011, it was a different time where the mayors were fighting, there was feuds, there was things going on, and you looked at deconsolidation, a whole different matter. Our job here is to see what we can and can't fix, and what would take in great answers. I mean, the attorney thing, some of the stuff that Kevin said today, I thought was excellent. I said we can use an attorney, that's fine if the city doesn't feel they're represented. But in the mayor's situation, I just feel like we've got everything we need there. You've got, for example, one Acadiana does a wonderful job, great job of representing everybody. That was a wonderful idea that they did. But at the same time, you still got a chamber in Broussard, you got a chamber in Youngsville, you got a chamber, but they all work together. If there's an opportunity to bring that deal for Lafayette General, the Ochsner's thing, into Broussard, you don't believe they weren't all working together. So I don't know that we've missed out on anything, and that's what I'm looking for, an example of where there was a problem that we didn't handle and we didn't deal with, where somebody said this was not fair. And I certainly trust our administration and where this is going, and so I'm content with where we are. Thank you.
I'm going to just be point blank here. The bottom line is here, we have a mayor president. If we don't trust him to make right decisions, vote him out. But, you know, the city voted him in, the parish voted him in. It's by a majority. That's the way our democracy works. And that's what you do every 4 years. Not doing a good job, you don't trust them, you vote them out, bottom line. And this is kind of what sounds like that's what we're trying to do. We're judging Josh here for the job he's doing. And I think there's some hidden agendas here to create a mayor position. I really do. I believe it. You know, I sat back and listened to everybody give their piece. But the bottom line is the people spoke. They want a city parish president, and that's what we have. And until the voters vote him out, or the voters change the charter, that's what we have today. So we've got to work from within to fine tune what we have to deal with. And everybody, I respect everybody's position here. That's not what I'm saying here. But intergovernmental agreements, lining everything out, fine tuning what we have here, because it's working. It's working. So I'm not sure if, you know, I keep hearing about this mayor's position. I just think it's a ploy to take power away from the city parish president, which the residents have voted for. And that's my 5 minutes of complaining, but that's not why I'm serving on here. I think deconsolidation, everybody's pretty much said, even Kevin has said, that it's not the way to look at it. Let's go from within and fine tune what we have and work with what we have. But creating another mayor's position, and I respect everybody's positions on someone from Scott or from Karen Crowe voting for a city representative. But, you know, they voted, and that's what we have to deal with. So that's just my 2 cents. Thanks.
Look at CGI's downtown Lafayette. That's right.
All right, first, this is not, and I appreciate your comments, Tim, but I'm not looking at this as the way to replace anybody. I'm looking at this as a way to have better representation for the voters. And I know Robert said that we could basically put a stipulation in there. You okay, Rob? You cold? I thought I was saying something that was making you, I'm sorry if I, you scared me for a minute there. No, I'm just, you made the comment that we could put a stipulation that the mayor president has to be from Lafayette. But if I live in Scott or Youngsville and Broussard, I might have a problem with that, because now you're restricting someone from another municipality that, okay, he's representing them as well. So we might cause a conflict by doing something like that. So, you know, I feel like it's really just a question of, you know, making sure that the representation of the voter who is voting for a certain position, whether it's the mayor president, whether it's a mayor of Lafayette, basically lives in that environment. He's voting for that person because he is the only person that is going to be affected by them. Broussard is not affected by the decisions that, you know, a mayor of Lafayette would have, just like we're not really affected by the Broussard's, you know, mayor's decision. So I guess it's not about an individual. It's not about an individual at all. It's about representation and, as Will said, just democracy. So yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on restricting that parish president so where he has to live in just
Well, I wasn't
Lafayette.
suggesting you do that. I was just saying, indicating that's an alternative that you may want to look at. if
We
you wanna
might
make
have
sure
a
somebody's from this
constitutional
city.
problem with that as well. That might not be legal, you know?
Not sure.
I don't know.
But like Kevin said, it's just like prior to consolidation, the people in the city got to vote whether they wanted Walter Como to be their parish president. I mean, they just get to vote because they're paying parish property taxes. We weren't married then, but we're married today. And I'm not so sure that we don't need a marriage counselor as opposed to a divorce lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, you know, sometimes marriages work, sometimes they don't. And
Oh,
and it
absolutely.
doesn't mean we have to stay in that marriage if it's not working, you know? And again, I'm not going for deconsolidation, but as far as the fact that this is what we have to live with it, I don't agree with the fact that we can't tweak it and make it a little bit better. So that's where I'm coming from.
And I wanted to respond to Mr. Bro, your comments that this is not an attack on the current administration or Josh, that wanting a city mayor of Lafayette is not an attack on him. He could run and be city mayor of Lafayette if we split the roles. My comments are at the mayor president forum, the KATC mayor president forum in 2019, when It was Josh, Carlos, Carly, Simone, Nancy. They all 5 of them said, including Josh himself, that that we should split the mayor-president role into a mayor and a city, a mayor and a parish president. And Josh's own words was that you can't serve 2 masters. There is a fundamental flaw with that setup. So he can be the best mayor-president we've ever had, but he even recognizes, and I encourage people to go, the videos on YouTube, I encourage them to go watch it, where he says that. Even he recognizes, like, that's a fundamental flaw with our system. And we've got to fix the system. The person may be great. Josh may be tremendous, but the system is messed up.
I still say you go back to the voters. The voters make that decision. Not me, not you. It's the voters in a whole make that decision for us.
Let's ask
Yeah,
them.
and the bottom line is that Josh may have those opinions, but the bottom line is the people want it this way. So until that changes, that's what we're here to deal with.
I may be amiss, but I'm pretty certain that Josh wrote in regards to the Protect the City's finding, and if I'm not mistaken, he addressed that, right? I think he said, I know I said this, but my position has changed, having been exposed inside and actually working in the government versus just being on the outside. Am I right about that? I'm sorry, Paul, let me get you on.
Yeah, that is in our book, how he addressed it, and I even felt the same way in my 2.5 months of temporary insanity when I was looking at the job. But yeah, he addressed it, and if you look at it, again, it's what have we missed out on versus what we would uproot. I'm all about representation. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. But I don't know we've missed out on anything. I think it's, right now, again, as I said earlier, when Mr. Blanchard was up, we've got a wonderful group of mayors in our municipalities and our cities that are this, and they're all working together. And I don't think we've ever had it better as far as the representation, the people that are holding office and where we are today. I've never seen it as smooth and good operating as where we are. So again, but he did address it in his letter that we have all in our white book here.
Thank you, Paul. I guess this is a question, more than a comment. If somehow the thing had legs and you went to the voters on the city, wouldn't you have to go to the parish as a whole to vote? Do you want a separate mayor of Lafayette and a separate parish president, right? You couldn't go to the voters and just say, okay, unincorporated area municipalities, you're not getting a vote on this charter amendment because we're just going to change it just for where the city had. Wouldn't the thought, even if you wanted to split that, have to go to the voters, and the whole parish as a whole would have to say, yes, we want a separate parish president, and yes, we want a separate mayor without deconsolidation?
Yeah, I mean,
It's just a question I have.
I'm not sure. I would defer to Greg or Paul F. Scott or Mike Hebert or a lawyer to answer that question, but you would think that would be the case, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm just thinking out loud because, it has been voted on. I'm just thinking, does it go down the road of deconsolidation? What if you brought it to a parish vote, right? Yeah. And the unincorporated municipalities say, you know what, I like the form of mayor president because it's working for us. Maybe it's not working for the city of Lafayette, but again, whoever is in that spot, I think has to do the job best for overall. I don't think somebody's going to shun the city of Lafayette when 52% of your population is coming from the city.
Yeah, they can.
I'm just, for us to know, for it to even have legs, does it require a parish vote?
I would think so.
And if it does, how?
Reverse it, yeah.
To reverse it. And then let's say it does go to the public vote and they say we like it the way it is. Then that goes back to what I was saying. Then it goes back to the argument of fixing the function and the allocation and fixing the budget side of it and having the city vote on city and the parish vote on parish in its current form of government. And then so let's say it comes back that way and then you're fighting it. I mean, so you still, the whole parish as a whole. So on what you want, the parish and unincorporated area municipalities are still going to have a say on on that. And so, yeah, I was just saying, I think it would have to go to, I would assume it has to go to the parish.
Try 3 times, right? Yeah, it's failed 3 times.
Power would the parish president
Hold on, Paul.
Yeah.
Paul.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay. I asked, what power would the parish president have if we had a mayor and stuff? You'd have all just a little outline, the road, drainage and roads, that's about it. You wouldn't have anything else.
Library.
Yeah, but I mean,
Library,
jail,
There's lots of,
roads, drainage.
it'd be a lot less than what it would be involved with the city. I mean, it wouldn't have any power.
Would it be LUS?
Would it be a
Would
full-time position?
City police?
Well, yeah, would it be a full-time job then?
A parish president,
Again, this goes, huh?
a parish president with a parish council would control the millages. That's a big thing. Right now, road and bridge and drainage millage bring in about 18 million a year. Prior to consolidation, when I was public works director for the parish, we spent virtually none of that in the corporate limits of Lafayette.
But I think he's talking about day-to-day operation of the parish.
Oh, yeah, no.
Well, both, but yeah.
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Yeah. It would seem like it would be somewhat diminished, to say the least, if you know,
It'd be less of a role without
a lot less of a role. Okay, anyhow, thank you.
Great discussion.
All right, anybody else? Actually, we have to go to public. And so, Robert, just want to say thank you so much. And, yeah, thank you. Well, now it's time for comments from the public. Ms. Williams, is there any public comment?
Yes, sir, we do have 2 speakers.
All right, so let me just remind again, this is time to speak about topics relative to our commission. There's no debating, confrontational statements, no personal attacks that are allowed. Please remain respectful. For efficiency, to allow everyone the opportunity to speak, questions should be submitted in writing to the clerk of council. And lastly, you're reminded, there's a little clock right in front of you. You got 3 minutes.
The first speaker is Ted Reshort, and he will be followed by Jeff Daly.
Hello, Ted.
I hate going first. I remember when Andy Aber used to come up here and complain over and over and over again about the deconsolidation and all of this. And Mr. Bro, earlier you said that the people voted for it, and this is what the people voted for. But I remember one of Andy's big comments was that in order for deconsolidation to work, both the city had to vote for it and the parish had to vote for it. And at the time, the parish voted for it, but the city did not. So I don't know, maybe that's why this whole thing about the parish president is coming up again, and about the city having a mayor, is because all those people remember at the time, that's not what they voted for. So, simple question. I was speaking with Will earlier, and one of the things I brought up is I said, what would happen if none of the parish was unincorporated? I live in an unincorporated area of the parish, and like Kevin said, I get 2 representatives. I get the parish president, and I get my parish council member. Anybody that lives in an incorporated area gets 3. So Kevin's absolutely right about that. You know, saying that if you live in the unincorporated area, you don't really get the representation that almost everybody else gets. And at this point, last time I checked, and you may have to check my numbers, I think 20% of this parish is unincorporated. That's a whole lot of people that are unincorporated that only get 2 voices. I only have a minute and a half left, and I don't want to talk long. I want to talk about the jail for a little bit. And one of the things that kept the parish broke for so long was that the parish didn't get a whole lot of money from the other incorporated cities toward the jail and toward the courthouse. I remember speaking with Sheriff Garber, and I said, why don't Scott and Karen Grove and Doosan and all of those other cities contribute toward the jail? They don't. Even the city of Lafayette only pays $1 million a year toward the jail. When I spoke with Sheriff Garber, he said it takes about $50 per prisoner per prisoner per day to run that parish jail. If you have only 500 prisoners in that jail, that's about $29 million. I'm sorry, $19 million, I did the math wrong. So that's telling you that even if the city only puts in $1 million, you're still short $18 million, which should be coming from the city and from the other municipalities around the parish. So anyway, that may be, I know it's not a whole lot of hill of beans of money, but that would be some place where some of the money could come from. And the other thing that I want to remind you guys is that, you know, y'all are all talking about all this money that the parish has and that the city has, and we have all this money to spend. You have to remember that were it not for COVID, we wouldn't have all this money. So what are you going to do next year and the year after that and the year after that when you don't have all of this influx of huge amounts of money coming in? So thanks.
Next speaker is Jeff Daly.
First of all, thank you all for your service. This is a tremendous thing you're doing, and the only reason you're doing it is because you care about this city and this parish, and I really appreciate all the energy you guys are putting into this. First off, I think it's important to note the city actually doesn't elect a mayor, but we do. The parish elects a president who happens to also serve as the mayor. I don't believe, in my opinion, we can fix the function of government without splitting the executives, because the council's authority ends the moment after the funds have been appropriated. So if you have a combined person, that creates an incentive for them to pit city versus parish interests against them, because they're no longer accountable to the two separate bodies. To clarify something Robert said earlier, the city population share of the parish is 50.1%. So that means we are in a situation now where if a mayor-president prioritizes parish issues, they're more likely to get elected than if they prioritize city issues, because we're getting real close to the point where it's not even, the city is not even a majority anymore. Think about it this way. Imagine the city was a $500 million a year business. Imagine parish government was a $100 million a year business. Does it make sense to have a part-time CEO of a $500 million a year organization? Because that's what our mayor is right now for city government. It's also arguable, does it make sense to have a part-time parish president for a $100 million a year organization? Because that's what parish government is. Even stranger, does it make sense that the CEO of the $500 million a year company is voted on by the shareholders of the $100 million a year company? Because that's what consolidated government is right now with the mayor-president. Think about it this way. The city pays for 80% of the mayor-president's salary. Does that mean he's only working 4 to 5 days a week? The city of Lafayette's a $500 million a year organization. We need a full-time mayor. The parish is only paying 20% of the mayor president. That's 1 day a week. Does the parish government really only need an executive for 1 day a week? I don't think so. As a result, the city needs a full-time mayor who is accountable to city voters, because that's how democracy is supposed to work. It's not about where the mayor lives. It's about who holds that person accountable. I also think the parish needs an executive focused on parish issues, like defending parish finances from annexation. I think part of why we got into this problem is because we didn't have enough attention on parish government, because there's so much going on with city government. This is just the limits of a human. Right? This isn't about any individual. There's only so much hours in the day when push comes to shove. A lot of the issues that Robert bring up, I really respect all of his service to our community. I guess he's not here anymore, but are honestly not reasons to not deconsolidate these positions. The state capital increase, that's due to extenuating circumstances. The consolidation has not led to an increase in tax revenue. That's correlation, not causation. You can't say because we were consolidated we had this growth of sales tax and property tax revenue. And in fact, if you look at the city of Lafayette, our population is flatlined, our sales tax is flatlined. So this whole argument that the city is better off is not true based on the numbers. And most of the efficiencies of consolidation have come from city government paying for equipment that parish government uses for free. And also illegally spending city sales tax revenue. We've been playing very loose with the rules for a long time. And the coordination that Robert touts doesn't really require consolidation to happen. If Incorporated Lafayette wants a mayor, then they need to incorporate. You know, that's how it works. By living on unincorporated Lafayette, you don't have your own mayor. And it's unincorporated person can run for parish president. Finally, everything is complicated. All of this is complicated. There's no way around that. I believe we can't split the mayor president, do intergovernmental agreements, have city departments, parish departments, potentially consolidated departments, but that's getting into, you know, how do we make the bacon. So thank you all very much. I've got a lot more I can share if you all want me to come back and talk about who pays for what, because right now every consolidated department is either screwing the city or the parish or both, based on how costs are being allocated right now. Not because of anyone's fault, but just because of the nature of consolidation itself. So thank you.
Thank you.
Final speaker is James Colvin.
Hey, thanks everyone. I am a Lafayette City resident. I'm also a business owner. We own Beausoleil Books downtown. And I have the unfortunate event of also coming from Baton Rouge in the new city of St. George. So I understand some of these issues that are going on why a city wants their own elected official. I would have voted for St. George. I left right before it. I signed the petition to incorporate as a city. As a city official in St. George, you have the ability, if you're unincorporated, to ask to be incorporated into a city limits if people in that area want to be part of, say, Scott or Youngsville. The problem with what we have right now is Youngsville, Scott, Karen Crow are growing at a larger percentage than Lafayette. And there is going to become a time when their cities can officially come together, run as two individuals, as a pair, saying, I'm running as Scott, and they're running on the same ticket, and then disregard Lafayette as a city, because we will be under what he just currently said, 50%. We're getting very close to that, and that doesn't necessarily have to do with the growth of Lafayette, but more in the exponential growth of Youngsville and Scott and Karen Crow. And we want this city to thrive as a parish, but as others parishes have gone, St. George decided to become their own city because they wanted representation that was not Baton Rouge. And they still have the ability to vote for their parish